Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku joined Girls Only Club? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. When a competition of any kind is had, a common discussion is how to take a loss. It makes sense because if something has a winner, that means something had to have lost, and humanity has a long record of not taking losses well. France quite literally bankrupts their entire empire to fund America's revolution just to get back at the British for a war lost a few years prior. But it's just as important to talk about how to handle a win, as humanity has an equal amount of history of not handling a win well. It's just less noticed because of the cheerful celebration and pride that surround it. An ill-handled victory can lead to the winner's downfall, from overconfidence to unreasonable contentment, and in some cases greed in taking prizes. In short, too much of anything isn't good. That involves winning. You never know what you can trigger, or better said, who you can trigger. Such philosophy was on the mind of a certain green-haired boy as he walked in the streets at night, heading toward a gas station. Breaking news: extremely angry man attempts murder on 3 women by setting his school on fire over custody issues involving his little sister. Man is still at large. That's extremely troubling to hear, Saiko states, looking at the TV in her home. Iri, who had her usual blank face, added, especially without context. It's kinda spooky because I just turned on the TV and that's the first thing that popped up. See, this why I have no interest in the news. You can turn on the TV and boom, you're hit with extremely biased propaganda and this kind of news. Well, no time to worry about that, the lavender girl says, taking Iri's hand into her own and leading her deeper into her mansion of a house. Yes, the mansion of a house. The Iri have barely entered the house and the two already had 3 different discussions over the topic. It's been officially decided, by the pompous girl herself, that she lives in a mansion-like house. Saiko likes to think of herself as extremely humble for that declaration. It's getting late, time to get you out of those dusty clothes and into something better for a young lady such as yourself, continued Saiko, guiding her through the hall so the little child can't get lost. As expected from a house that was basically a mansion, which was actually a mansion being passed off like a house by a girl with little sense of what being higher middle class is, the interior was gloriously decorated. The hallways were well lit by the fancy designed wall lamps, showing off the bright orange atmosphere of the wall paint and the artistically designed furniture that decorated it, giving it that lavish style you would expect from the resident of Saiko. As the two walked along a Chinese flag color palette rug, Iri noticed a strange detail about the house. They've been inside for quite some time and yet not a single noise was made that wasn't from the 2 girls. If they stopped moving right now and didn't exchange any more words between each other, the entire house would be absolutely silent. It wasn't a peaceful atmosphere, but a hollow dome. This place is so empty, Iri bluntly stated, not dancing around the issue. You live here alone. Saiko didn't look back as she quickly responded, well, this isn't exactly the most lively household, but I'm not completely alone. Sure looks alone, the little girl says, nonchalantly looking straight at Saiko, and dropping a cold question. Are you one of those rich girls who take borderline sadistic pleasure of belittling others in some sad attempt to fill in the deep emotional hole in your heart because mommy and or daddy never made time to properly care for you because they were too busy indulging themselves as 1% scum? And no, was Saiko's stammered response. It wasn't a bullseye, but it definitely got points on the dartboard. Overcoming the discomfort a toddler hit her with by clearing her throat, let me introduce you to my butler. She reclaimed her pompous attitude as she softly called out the word, gentle. At first there was nothing, then the space in front of the lavender-haired girl began to contort before a slight shade began to emerge from the distorted air for a split second before a full-grown man popped into existence. This apparent servant stood at an inch below 6 foot tall, well-dressed top to bottom, yet it seems he has taken some liberties in his outfit to give his own distinct extravagant spin on the butler attire. With his calm white hair, walrus mustache that was quite thin for the type which meant that he must trim it often, and medium-sized beard, he gave off the aura of a true gentleman that held enough refined taste to stand next to someone of Saiko's status. I must deeply apologize, lady, for my tardiness, said the gentleman that Saiko had called gentle. He immediately gave an elegant bow to show his regrets as soon as he had spawned into existence. I was attending to a matter your father assigned to me, so it took a moment before I could respond to your call. Placing her hands on her hips, Saiko responded, at ease, gentle, there's no need to fret. I'll forgive this delay of yours only if you provide your best catering service tonight. Rightfully so. What tea will you request to go with your meal? I said the best, so I want the best you can make, no holding back. Gentle pauses for a split second before asking, I apologize, lady, but can you clarify, are you talking about ordering from a certain menu? Yes, Saiko told him, I'm ordering from the secret menu. The white-haired gentleman lifted his head with a smile on his face. Lovely, then I shall present you with the most quality of tea. Make that for 2, I won't be eating alone today, the lavender girl told her servant, taking a short sidestep to gesture toward the child she recently acclaimed. Looking down and seeing the young Iri staring back at him with her big unmoving eyes, Gentle had bent down to Iri's level and asked, who may this darling child be? That's Eri, Saiko said, proudly informing his butler. She's now going to be having an extended stay here with us, forever. Quickly the smile dropped from Gentle, quickly switches his view between Eri and Saiko, his face stricken shocked as he says, Miss Saiko ... Did you win her in a dark game? What no? Quickly replied Saiko, her proud stance breaking. No, I just won the right for her to sleep at my house through a game. Loophole. Well played. I guess, lady, Gentle said, hiding his face from Seiko's sight as it contorts from wondering what kind of bizarre situation she must have gotten into to come home with the child. This was already concerning enough. He couldn't imagine the heart attack that could have happened if Saiko was a guy randomly bringing home a little girl he said he won. Thankfully, it wasn't his job to ask those questions. The fine butler looked toward Eri, holding out a spotless white glove, and greeted her. It's an honor to meet you, young Eri. I'm Miss Seiko's diligent servant Gentle. I deeply hope you enjoy your stay here. How did you get here? Was Eri's immediate response, cutting right to the point of her curiosity. Frequent banter was not going to deter her from uncovering that mystery. You snapped into existence in front of me. How did you do that? The servant looked up to his employer. His eyes seemed to be waiting for some sort of permission before he enacted his next move. Saiko nodded, stating, You can tell her. You're going to instate her into it as well. Instate? Repeated Eri, questioning exactly what this pompous girl meant before she gets involved in something indelible. Knowing these rich people, they pick the most screwed up hobbies or join some super cult that's into disturbing stuff. I don't mind sticking around for the free high-class PC for when Cyber Thug 7702 comes out, but I'm bailing if anything involving going to a private island pops up. Standing straight, the Gentle butler removed his white glove, saying, She was referring to my quirk. He held up his hand showing a peculiar black circle on the back of it. As Gentle started taking a few steps back, he began to explain, It's called summoned. We don't need to bother with the details too much as it involves quantum physics. And, suddenly he was cut off by Eri saying, No. What? Gentle asked. His eyes were distorted in confusion from the sudden disruption of his presentation. You were about to explain away your bullshit powers by blaming it all on quantum physics like what movies do when they want to fudge how something abnormal happens, but don't want to say it was magic. Eri told them with a straight face. It was very minuscule that you'll need a microscope to see, but there was a bit of irritation on her face. Well, I'm sick of it. Stop it. You're not smart just because you use the scientific version of God's magic fixes all. It's cheap and lazy. Either make a decent theory or be man enough to straight up say it's beyond the science and possibly magic. The butler and his employer looked at each other, with Gentle's face especially wondering where did a student get such a sassy child that can make even an egotistical tyrant king feel lowly about himself. All Saiko could do is just shrug. She only got this girl a few hours ago from another student. There has yet been enough time to know everything about this tiny bundle of mystery. Pretending like nothing happened, Gentle continued. To make a long story short, with my quirk I can be embedded to the people of my choosing as a humble servant. If they ever require my presence, all they need to do is simply speak my name and I'll arrive as soon as I can no matter where they are. The kind gentleman walked into a random room further down the hallway without another word. Just like before, Saiko called out the name Gentle, and in response reality warped the well-groomed butler in front of her. Like so, Gentle says, giving a bow. The circle on his hand he showed earlier seemed to be glowing a beaming red as if it was melting before slowly reverting to black. Quirk, attendance. After fulfilling the requirement, which involves establishing a calling name, the user can form a contract with people of his choosing. Afterward, two circles will appear, a black summoner's circle on Gentle's body, and a white version of it on the body of the person he made a contract with. The white circle is barely visible, only really popping out when it turns blue in response to the summoning of Gentle. The black circle is always visible. When someone with a white circle calls out their assigned calling name with the intent to summon them, the circle will turn red with a slight burning sensation alarming Gentle that his presence is wanted. The longer Gentle goes without answering the call, the worse the burning sensation will get until he answers it. Current limit, 5 contracts. Current contracts, 4. Interesting, responded Eri, quite amazed but not surprised that they managed to get a servant with such a useful, but submissive quirk. If she didn't know any better she would say the person was made for this. Come now Eri, Saiko said, taking Eri's hand again and guiding her to her room. Let's leave Gentle to prepare our dinner, we need to get ourselves ready. Walking down the streets was Momo heavily debating if she should go through with her plan this late at night. The sun had already rested for the day, the streets were mostly uninhabited, and she was alone. The raven-haired girl hasn't even been to this part of town before. She knew where she was going and how to get there, but still, this was treading new ground she hadn't explored before. The streets weren't dirty or torn down, but it was clear to her that this part of town had residents that weren't as wealthy as the ones in her neighborhood. This is dangerous, I should turn back, thought Momo as she continued to step forward toward her destination. Why couldn't I just wait till tomorrow? It'll feel weird if I do it at this time anyway. Yeah, that's right, I can just wait till tomorrow when the sun was out to do this. No need to take such an unnecessary risk being out here like this. So I'm going to head back right now. Momo continued walking forward. Any second now I'm going to turn back. Any second now. Why am I like this? She screamed in her head, frantically shaking her head to get her mind straight. For some reason, a lot of her reasoning was fading away as soon as she decided to step outside her house. As the modest woman clutched her head to keep her sanity, she heard a familiar alluring voice behind her. Momo, is that you? After letting out a high-pitched eep, Momo snapped her head around to see Izuku standing behind her, wearing a green and black hoodie with a bag in his hand. Oh, it is you, Izuku stated, approaching her slowly. Momo wasn't sure if it was the atmosphere of being approached at night alone or if the effects of Izuku's shenanigans from a few days ago were still in effect, but suddenly her heart began beating rapidly as Izuku got closer to her. Oh no, not here. The modest girl thought, her body jolted back as she held a clenched fist to her chest. Never had she felt so conflicted to both get away from but also throw herself towards someone. While she was busy having her internal conflict, Izuku had calmly walked next to her asking, "What are you doing here?" He asked, the usual con man, S's lube, boastful, CCKY enough to try to pull off a fedora attitude in his voice that had defined his presence among the girls was gone. The rippling ocean waves that repeatedly crashed against the sturdy exclusive walls of the Killer Queens have suddenly been calmed. It was unnaturally soothing to hear, which quickly eased some of the anxiety Momo was experiencing. Izuku took a glance at Momo's outfit before commenting, "I almost didn't recognize you with that pretty outfit on. This is the first time I've seen you outside of school and all." Momo had opted to go in a special dress that was a red skirt with a white top decorated with the drawings of many roses, and some flat shoes. Beautiful and fancy as expected of her. If this was Izuku from a day ago, then he would have made a teasing comment so bad that Momo would end up speaking French again from being furred. Instead, he just simply commented on the dress being nice. Despite the rather light compliment, a small tint of pink did still come across Momo's face. She didn't want to wear anything to stand out, but her wardrobe mixed with a bit of wishful ignorance led her to this choice. Nervously avoiding direct eye contact, Momo fiddled with her hair as she bashfully asked, "Is it too much? Was that why you spotted me so easily?" "Well, it's certainly a new look I've seen around," calmly answered Izuku, taking the initiative to sorta guiding Momo down the street with him. "But I wouldn't call it misplaced to wear here. The people in these parts aren't the ricest and many are a few bad decisions away from having to live from the slums, but we're not devoid of fashion. We're just as engaged in fashion as any designer, which is questionable but whatever. You should see some of the styles that will trend here for a few weeks. If anything, I was more surprised that someone wore something fashionable but normal that I can with a clear conscience say it looks cute." The comment only worsened Momo's blush as she shyly scrunched up a bit but felt a bit relieved that she didn't overdress. Still wasn't the best idea to do this at night. "Enough about dresses though, you didn't answer why you were out here at this hour," questioned the green-haired boy. "That was what got my attention the most. I didn't think you'll be out in these parts, especially at night." "Oh right, why she was out on this questionable walk in the first place." That question turned Momo's blush into a bright red as she answered, "I actually wanted to come see you. At your house. At night?" Izuku asked, raising a questioning eyebrow at her. It wasn't the super flirty one he would have usually given her, but still it had a sprinkle of suggestiveness as to why his female classmate would risk herself to come to his house at night dressing so nicely. "It was only for a visit," snapped Momo quickly before he could take it in a way to tease her again. She quickly covered her mouth for a moment once she remembered it was late and shouting would make her fears and anxiety worse. Not to mention it was rude to the people trying to sleep. Calming herself, she continued, "You didn't come to school today and I haven't heard from you, so I thought I'll check up on you. But at night." I heavily debated it. It ate away at me for hours if I should go or not, and by the time I decided the sun was starting to go down, but before I could change my mind I was already stepping out of my house, and for some reason my legs wouldn't turn back as I kept telling myself I can make it. Stopping her before she goes on an unneeded rant, Izuku raises a calming hand to tell her, "It's fine, you can stop there. I think I get it. Thank you for your concern." Momo's lips curved into a soft smile before returning to a more concerned face about what's to come. There was a queasy feeling that made her want to not go through with her full original plan, but her willpower burst past the sensation to see it through. She was visiting him for a reason and needed to ask, "So, how are you holding up?" Keeping a straight face, Izuku didn't reply for a full minute, building the tension before responding, "You mean about Eri?" Hesitantly, the head of Momo moved up and down twice to answer. "As you can see, I'm living." The boy exhaled a breath as he spoke. It's almost chilling how normal he was sounding. Not at all happy but alive and functioning. Momo's eyes dragged away from Izuku for a moment as she pondered something, looking back at him to ask, "Why were you out at night? Please tell me you weren't doing anything unreasonable." Not answering at first, Izuku reached into the bag he was carrying, pulling out a delicious snack whose aroma immediately allured Momo. "Pork buns, I was getting them from the local gas station. Thought they might cheer me up a bit since they're amazing." He took a bite out of the bun, chewing it a bit, showing the meaty goodness inside of the bun to her and saying, "Not bad at all, they're kinda working." "Oh, thank goodness." An exhale of relief came from Momo. She didn't know why, but she had an unreasonable fear that the first thing Izuku was going to do as soon as he lost Eri was go on some sort of warpath and burn down someone's house. She might be watching too many of those late-night crime detective shows that talk about murders. Still, it's almost unfathomable that he's having such a normal reaction to something like this. Izuku held out the bag of pork buns out to Momo to offer some. You want one? The question snapped her out of her short thoughts, slightly shaking her hands in front of her to reject it. And no, I'm fine. They're your comfort food right now anyway. Don't worry about that. You risked a lot more than I expected you would, so I should at least thank you for that with a small gift like this. Honestly, eating just one of these things with anyone is way more comforting to me than eating 100 of these by myself. It's something I usually do with Eri, but, well, don't really have that person to do this with right now. With a hesitational delay, Momo slowly reached into the bag being offered to her and took out a dumpling. I guess I'll take one then, she mumbled to him. As she nibbled on the food and took the FL-packed meat into her mouth, she tried to mentally brush off the real reason why she gave in. I was a tiny bit famished anyway. Honestly, I'm more concerned about how she's doing than doing anything stupid, Izuku tells her after she took his offering, putting his hands behind his head as a way to stretch. She'll be fine, Momo swiftly assured him. Saiko can be like getting thrown in a bush of thorny roses. Yes, that, she can also be a bit ultra-egotistical sadist that probably gets away with a lot of it because she's rich and exceedingly attractive. That as well. But she tends to keep most of those tendencies mostly towards students at school, as they're a possible challenge to her as a player with the whole treasure wars coming up and all. Some of her attitudes leak out to a lot of people. It's a bad habit of hers. You don't say. But she treats children extremely well, believe it or not. Setsuna's little sibling loves to visit her. I did not know that, Izuku plainly said. Who would have guessed? Good to know she's not some cultist who eats kids. Oh, I can just eat you up, squealed Saiko, giddily pressing her hands together as she saw the nightgown she had put Eri in. A light blue nightgown designed with white birds that dee down to her ankles. No, maybe this one. The lavender girl states, quickly changing Eri into a gown that was white with blue birds on it. Yes, marvelous. This one is definitely perfect. I look like I'm wearing some Twitter brand merchandise for an ad, Eri plainly states, looking down at herself for how she was dressed. Might as well sell out to a big corporation while I'm at it and become rich, but then I have to shill all their crazy politics like a dog. Ugh, that'll be annoying. While Eri was thinking, she didn't notice when Saiko had changed her into a similar dress, except it was black with blue birds. What about this one? The pompous girl asked, pressing her fingers under her plush lip as she examined the dress in a typical art critic's eye. You know, the one where a bunch of pretentious people look at art like a banana taped to a wall and stare at it for hours, acting like they were critically analyzing the artistic vision of its design. Oh yes, the glamorous display of contrasting colors and abstract designs is absolutely stunning to view under a nocturnal view. What in the name of Guy Fawkes are you talking about? Stated Eri. I just look like Twitter with dark mode on. You're right, I think we strive to even greater heights, Saiko exclaimed, stepping back to her closet to pick out a new set of clothes she wanted to try out. Ooh, I have so many little dresses I want to see you in. You're going to look so cute. With Saiko being the only one excited about the dress-up game that was going on, a more solemn feeling Eri sighed to herself at her current situation. Why couldn't Big Brother have won that game, she sighed, already missing the person who took care of her. The only thing she had to hang on to was that high-class PC. Playing those new AAA games will make most of this worth it. I hope this doesn't take long. Gold, no. Diamonds have been struck, Saiko exclaimed as she hopped out from her closet, holding up a charming crimson nightgown. Red is definitely your color. Calmly analyzing the dress brought out, Eri commented, that looks a bit big for me. It's only by a few centimeters, but it'll totally work for you. Children in disproportionate clothes are absolutely adorable. I thought people wearing clothes that don't fit them were looked down on. Nonsense, that only applies when they're poor or undesirable. Typical upper-class privilege, something is always disdained till they start doing it. Grumbled Eri with contentment that can only be obtained through working in retail during the holiday season and realizing that the person who benefited from all of it the most was the owner, who was sitting at home enjoying the holiday. I don't even want to know why you have a bunch of overgrown pajamas fit to be worn by kids in your closet. It's one of the world's mysteries why people who were made so powerful through capitalism indulge themselves in such grotesque activities. Then again, what should I expect from the class of people whose most pressing issue is their desperate struggle to find new interesting ways to spend their questionable wealth? This makes me extremely worried about that ruffian's parenting, Saiko stated, holding the dress with a hand as she approached the child. She's been saying a lot of off things lately, and while at first it was cute, now it was quickly becoming disturbing. Disturbing was putting it lightly as well. Who hurt this girl was running through Seiko's head throughout the entire conversation. At this point of your life, you should be thinking that Santa Claus was real because you saw something on TV that said so, though that was before an actual villain took on the name, and now he's considered a global terrorist. A better example would be wishing that Pokémon was real because you're not old enough to realize how horrible a world like that would actually be to live in. Being a socialist propaganda voice should not be one of those things. Like, how does your mind even contemplate such a topic? You think I'll be dumb enough to want to try socialism? Eri replied, crossing her arms over her chest and giving the monotonous look of superiority to Saiko. To the self-proclaimed god Eri, not even the rich stand a chance. Venezuela still hasn't recovered. Eri ... What do you like? What do you like? What do you go for? I mean, it seems like you hate everything, so I'm just curious. What do you want the land to be ruled by? A petrified Saiko asked. At this point it needed to be asked, what does this child think about? Eri gave a straight answer, anarchy. Saiko clapped her hands together, putting on a smile before stating, all right then. Back to trying on dresses. Yes, that'll be for the best, Eri said, her face not changing one bit from the start. I still think red will look great on you, says Saiko. She held out her hand before calling out the magic word that'll summon Gentle. Arriving on time, Gentle asks, what is it, lady? Double the order of tea and arrange some therapy sessions for the little one. Really hope Eri doesn't say anything too weird, Izuku says to Momo as they approach the door to his condo. I mistakenly let her roam the internet and social media a bit too much, so sometimes she talks as if she'd unlocked the secret code of life. You should really monitor her more, scolded the raven-haired girl, standing next to Izuku as his humble home is in front of them. She's in her most developmental phase of her life, you know. Don't want any negative influences getting to her. I try, but it's a bit hard when I'm technically one of them. Let's not go that far. You certainly have questionable actions, but for my short time of seeing you two, I can tell that your bond is good for each other. Gosh, this whole club president rampage of yours was all because you two didn't want to be apart. Izuku broke his stoic face to give a soft smile, rubbing the back of his head as he responded, you flatter me. I'm really not going out of my way here. It's me doing my usual thing of justifying my bold actions. I wouldn't be surprised if she sees you as a hero for that. For all my schemes, I'm still young and hopeless when it comes to school. There's only so much I'm going to be able to slip by, and pulling another one over Nezu will be a step under impossible at my current level. Which is usually my kind of game, but that mouse is one of the few things that'll make me not take the gamble even if I could cheat the results, stated Izuku, thinking back to that chess match he had as he unlocks the door to his condo. It was almost a slaughter. The only reason it was anything else was because Nezu didn't see it as anything more than swatting another fly that tried to enter the school. It was just this time the fly acknowledged its position in the universe and uses that to slip by the cracks created contentment. Momo gave him a taunting side-eye for this rare moment of his. She wasn't sure if he was being humble or truthful, but her intuition was telling her that despite Everest Mount and difficulty it would be, he could climb it. You'll find a way, was all Momo said to him. If it's not your way, you'll usually make it your way. Hey, snapped Izuku, you make me sound like some middle-aged woman who'll run straight to the manager as soon as things don't go my way. No, not exactly. I'm simply saying you're quite stubborn to deter once you set your mind on something. Guess you're not wrong, but it's not all me. That's just me being the face of the operation taking effect. I've gotten this far in my life only through the amount of people who have supported me to push forward, no matter how small it was. Like you, as Izuku spoke, he opened the door. Stepping in with him, Momo commented, I haven't done much for you, have I? That's what you think. There were about 4 different forms I needed to fill out for school that I never knew about. If you didn't help me out with it, I could have ran into a couple of problems later down the road. I don't consider that much, it's nothing but pure courtesy, said Momo, bashfully turning away. After having a quick moment to herself, she took a bold step toward Izuku with an intentful eye. Her mind was filled with vivid thoughts as her pillowy lips moved to say, but, if you want me to really do something for you, maybe I can. Oh hey, you're finally back, called out Setsuna was casually sitting on the couch, holding up a welcoming hand to the duo, and you managed to snag Momo along the way, or did she latch onto you back to your den? Ayala, shrieked Momo, quickly jerking her body away from Izuku. Her body was shaking as she tried to hide all her unknown intentions like a child trying to hide his DS after playing it past their bedtime. A mix of utter shock, deep horror, huge embarrassment, and a pinch of disappointment all came together in a deadly combination that was plastered across the raven-haired girl's face as she stammered, Setsuna. Yo. Izuku stepped out in front of Momo, walking over to Setsuna to hand her a bun and a drink. I'ma go take off my jacket, Izuku told the girls before leaving the room to his 2 clubmates. As soon as the hair of the emerald boy was gone, Momo turned to Setsuna to continue. WWH, what are you doing here? The silver-tongued brunette sat up straight, stretching her arms to crack her cramped bones as she replied. I told you before leaving school that I was going to go someplace I probably shouldn't. This is it. I thought you meant. Never mind, this just wasn't what I was expecting. For me, I say this is expected. The real abnormality here is you, stated Setsuna, walking over to the modest girl and poking her chest. You didn't mention anything about visiting all emerald, smart, and deceitful. In fact, I remember a certain lady proclaiming that she was heading straight home. Momo swiftly averted her eyes from her classmate. Well, I did go straight home. Replied Setsuna, who had a smirk filled with enough smugness to make nobles gasp. Now you're here. Because I got worried and changed my mind. He's our clubmate, it's only natural that I'll check up on him after what Saiko did. Sounds like a booty call, though since you went out to find him I guess you can call it a booty hunt. Red flashed over Momo's pale face as she exclaimed, "Ah, no, I would never." "Geez Momo, with how timid you can be, I assumed you'll be someone who'll lay themselves out on a platter waiting for someone to take the bait," Setsuna told her, taking a bite out of the meat bun given to her. "Never took you as a woman, one who likes hunting for her meat." Though Izuku did just lose the most important woman in his life, with Uri gone it was open season for you to slide right into the vacant seat like a famished Mainator. "That's not true," gasped Momo, ing up her fists to swing up and down in front of herself from everything the devious brunette was doing. The raven-haired girl's voice was becoming more ghastly at Setsuna's accusations, which at the moment will remain accusations. "Give it a few chapters for it to be confirmed." "I don't get why you're reacting this way," Setsuna said, shrugging at her classmate's embarrassment at the possible truth being told. "There's nothing bad about some late snacking. Guess I should apologize for interrupting by being here." Tomato face Momo brought her hands over her face to hide, muttering something in French as she rapidly shook her head to deny the charges. It was a lot quicker getting her to speak surrender this time, thought Setsuna, noticing how in a few short days her clubmate was acting differently. She must really be hooked on his line. "This is the first I've seen it happen this far this quickly. It's quite fun." Not having her fill of torment, Setsuna leaned in real quick to Momo's ear to whisper, "You know, Izuku said he was taking off his jacket. There's a good chance he's changing clothes as well. If you go in now you can catch him midway, maybe then you can pounce." All Setsuna received was a muffled scream from Momo, trying to scold her for her vulgar language and even more wild insinuations. That didn't mean there was a microscopic devil in the back of her mind that echoed the words, although. Right then Izuku reappeared in the room, in a moderate change of clothes. He greeted them, "I'm back." "Crap, you missed your chance." "Darn, I missed my chance," thought Momo. It took her a moment for her to realize what she just thought. "Wait a minute. That wasn't my idea." The modest girl snapped her head towards Setsuna's smug sharp-toothed face, who was trying to look innocent from her trying to provoke something lewd. Pouting, Momo stared daggers into the greenette for attempting to turn her silver-tongued whispers into cognitive thoughts. Setsuna was lucky that their attention was drawn by Izuku again before she could get a dictionary stack of scolding. "I heard Uri's name being said. Were you two talking about her?" Izuku asked his guest. He didn't look mad but still, his confident smile was gone. While Momo stumbled for a reply, Setsuns quickly interjected, "We were just wondering where you found Uri. With all that's going on because of you two, it's intriguing to know how you met the little one." An eerie silence befell the room. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to," Momo chimed in, not wanting to upset Izuku. How he didn't have an immediate answer was chilling. The greenette had slowly placed a hand over the midsection of his torso. The girl's question might have brought up troublesome memories. There, mostly Momo's, concern was waved off by Izuku stating, "Oh no, I don't mind sharing a quick overview." It was an exhilarating tale to relive. Once they were all seated, with a nice brew of tea made for them by Momo herself, Izuku started to explain Uri's and his story. Or at least, a condensed version of it. "You should know that me and Uri are not blood-related." "Oh god," commented Setsuna, "that's going to lead to some complications later on. I can sense it." Momo nudged Setsuna's arm with her elbow before saying, "That would explain a lot. I'm also guessing you don't have actual legal custody of her. Because if you did, Saiko would have never been able to take Uri the way she did." Nodding, Izuku replied, "I guess what you can call our relationship, in terms of living situation, as a sort of rescue operation." "Rescue?" repeated Momo, tilting her head. "Did she lose her parents in an accident or something?" Izuku shrugged. "That I'm unclear of. The status of her birth parents are still a mystery. All I know is that when I met Uri, she was with the Yakuza." "The Yakuza?" "Yeah, I know, the leader there was apparently her caretaker. But there should be a huge ass asterisk next to that word because the guy only cared for using Uri for the cheats her quirk can create. I'm sure you girls can somewhat relate to that." Momo nodded. She had gone to school with security for a good portion of her young life to make sure no one weird tried to take advantage of her young ignorance to get her into any deals. Many people tried to get her to sign some kind of contract because her quirk could be so useful. Even outside of school or when she got older, she still had someone who escorted her around to make sure nothing happened to her. It did decrease as time moved on and she became a responsible adult who can look after herself. Her father even mentioned an occasion when an uncle supposedly tried using her to pay off his gambling debt. Setsuna didn't react. Izuku continued telling the story. "Why I was involved with the Yakuza is for another day. But long story short, freeing her became a top priority despite how last minutes it was." "How'd you do it?" asked Setsuna, raising a curious brow. "I'm assuming through a game of some kind, but they are quite." The devious greenette took a short pause, giving a quick glance to Momo before mumbling to herself, "What's a nice way to put it since the Vestal is here?" "Cutthroat. The Yakuza is quite cutthroat with their deals." "What does Vestal mean?" questioned Momo. Setsuna quickly responded, "A nun, basically a virgin." "Hey," Izuku promptly stated, "it was one of the most deadly dark games I've played." "You played a dark game? With a Yakuza boss?" exclaimed Momo, shocked at hearing the words leave his mouth. She knew Izuku has probably done a lot of unsavory things because of his supposed background, but still just hearing the term dark game with the word Yakuza brought a fright and shiver down her spine. She did get a slight feeling of excitement when she thought about if he's alive today. That meant he won against the odds. Right. Just to save a child from an abusive Yakuza boss guardian, Izuku said in his defense, taking a sip of the tea made for him. Honestly, I thought I was going to die. Probably should've. Oh well, point is, I managed to get Eri her freedom and we've been together ever since. Well, that's a sweet little tale, commented Setsuna, the palm of her hands pressing against her face. That would explain you two's refusal to be apart from the other, even just for school, added Momo. She grabbed the bottom of her chin as she pondered. It won't be healthy for Eri's mental state either. HMMM. That's it, I'll be having a talk with Saiko when I return home. She has to return Eri. Setsuna shrugged her shoulders saying, yeah, guess I'll go as well. You need someone with the charisma to actually convince the Stonewall Princess of anything. You girls don't need to do that, Izuku says, holding up a hand. In fact, I'm politely asking you not to do anything. Surprised, the girls looked at each other with a bewildered look before turning back to Izuku. But Izuku, Saiko is pretty stubborn. I don't think she'll. No, Izuku sternly stated, interrupting the girls' attempt to help. He gave them a stare with his furrowed brow that froze them. Despite this, Setsuna was nearly unfazed as she witnessed Izuku's serious nature before when she put on the facade of taking Eri away. Strangely, this occasion didn't strike her as hard as the first time she witnessed it. Things can become less impressive after the first viewing, and this silver-tongued gal's eyes were obviously the most dirtied out of all the members of the club. Momo, on the other hand, Izuku's glare may be, very possible, not confirmed yet, but there's a chance, may have dampened her a bit. Taking a deep breath, Izuku tells them, sorry for raising my voice, but this is something I'm going to need to do my way. Let's be honest, if you convince her to just give me Eri back, we're going to be back to where this all started with nothing changing at all. Hell, that might even make her hate me more, which will be annoying to deal with for however long I'm here. If I'm going to get Eri back, I'm going to have to do it in the way Saiko will respect the most, in a game. The door to the Killer Queen's club room suddenly burst open. Saiko, a booming voice echoed in the room. The pompous girl was seated at her favorite seat at the table. With no care in the world, Saiko was calmly sipping her morning tea, enjoying its fine flavor, the gorgeous view she got from the window, and the taste of salt in the air from someone who's still mad at his loss to her. A perfect combination of components to create a sense of serenity that could barely ever be achieved for the Lavender Girl. Saiko was truly treating herself. Good morrow, Rat, greeted the Lavender Girl, not looking up from the magazine she was reading. She was looking at a catalog about fun sibling bonding exercises. How did you sleep last night? Because I slept great since I had a cute little guest in my bed. A scowl came across Izuku's face as he said, oh, you didn't. Returning his glare with a smug smile, Saiko replied, I cuddled her like a teddy bear. You sick bitch. Mild words, but coming from a defeated god it's nothing but enraged bark, Saiko told him, taking another sip from her cup before setting it down. This isn't the first and definitely not going to be the last that I'll experience this from someone like you. Where is she? At home where she can be taken care of and watched over properly. Sitting on the bed, Eri stared blankly at the little red-haired girl dressed in a maid outfit in front of her. I'm not sure what to question, Eri commented. The fact that the rich can have someone my age working as basically a slave, or that they left you to entertain me. The short-stack redhead immediately piped up a response. Hey, I'm not a child. Huh, could have fooled me. This girl, I'm already self-conscious about my height and she dug into it so quickly. Thought the red-haired maid, hunching over a bit with a depressed mumble. I'm legally allowed to drink. Also, my name is La Brava and I'm not a slave. I'm a willful person working as a maid because the pay is decent. Surprisingly, Eri turned her head away to stare at the wall. A bleak shade drew over the little girl's face, her mouth scribbled into a weird pout, and she muttered, disappointing. Why are you depressed about that? Cause now it'll be less fun, Eri stated, slouching her head onto her two palms. The shenanigans we could have gotten into would almost be as fun as playing a game. Now I'm just going to be bored with a midget. It's like eating an Oreo without the cream. It becomes pointless because you took all the fun out of it. Might as well eat a regular cracker at that point if you're going to give me something plain and cut to the chase. Gentle did warn La Brava of Eri's unique way of thinking for her age. La Brava raised her hand to say, first off, hurtful. Second, don't be bored, that's why I'm here. Really, I just thought they left you here to make sure I didn't burn down the house. That as well, Miss Saiko and dear Gentle are still slightly disturbed about the whole anarchy part, but that wasn't the only reason I'm here. What are the other reasons? While Gentle is out gathering and building the parts for your PC, and his infinite wisdom, he trusts me with the task to watch over you and play games to keep you entertained till he's finished. That doesn't sound bad, Eri mumbled, getting down from the bed onto her feet. La Brava smiled, thinking she finally had gotten to some soft spot with the child. Giving a bright closed-eye smile, she asked, right, so what game do you want to play? There was no answer. Slowly opening her eyes, La Brava repeated her question, Eri. What game did you sweet beans paste? Shock quickly filled the short stack when she saw the small child in front of her was gone without a trace. She frantically looked around and quickly saw a tiny tailing of Eri's clothing moving through the halls before making a turn. La Brava rushed so badly to chase after her that she tripped and had to quickly pick herself back up. In a desperate attempt, La Brava called out, Eri, wait. You didn't state if we were playing tag or hide and seek. It's essential so I can understand how I'm supposed to come after you. When she didn't get an answer, La Brava also shouted down. Because when you're running, I'll disappoint both Miss Saiko and my gentle if you got hurt under my watch. Where she should be, continued Saiko, safe. I want a rematch, demanded Izuku, walking toward her. Sorry, people say I'm overly prideful, but my hubris isn't big enough to unnecessarily bet the club president position after winning it, especially from a slimy cheat like yourself. I made it clear to the students of this school of my victory so they know that no one can just step in here as if we're a bunch of pushovers, secured that my club will have the leader it deserves and kept my club's integrity. There's no reason to push any further right now. I can't get rid of you, but I can definitely prevent you from doing anything harmful to us. So at this point, I might as well acquire some fries to eat with my tea while I listen to your rant. I don't enjoy my tea being too bitter. FCK the club president position, shouted Izuku as he stepped right next to the still sitting Saiko. I wanna back. No, why? Because I'm not dumb enough to let you steal what I've rightfully taken from you. Hey, I was the one who took her in first from the horrible home she was in, so you're the one trying to steal what I've rightfully saved from someone else. I guess that's the one thing I can thank your rat nature for. You managed to bring such a delicate, sweet little girl to a position where I can take her in. Now she can always be surrounded by people who will always be responsible with her. Oh god, I lost her. La Brava shouted, pulling at her twin tails when she couldn't even find a hint of where he ran off to. She resorted to the classic trick of blinding running, calling out her name. She may be a little rough, probably from too much influence from you, but she's still a fine young lady, continued Saiko. I'm not going to send her back, that'll be inhuman, and I tend to keep such tendencies away from children. You have no idea what you're doing with her, Izuku told her, clenching one of his fists. He knew Saiko wanted to see him mad and do something that might get him expelled since the Lavender Girl Izuku wouldn't bet his attendance at the school in a game. As Saiko went to take another sip of tea, she replied, You can stop trying. You're nothing to me, and at the moment there's nothing you have that I can want. Izuku took the teacup out of Seiko's hand and tossed it out the window. The fruits of reveling in victory can be blissful. Unfortunately, there's a reason why humans can only stay in heaven if they're dead. That was special, exclaimed Saiko. She slammed her hands against the table as she stood up. You pushed your luck. That was the last straw. Meanwhile, on the sideline of the room, Momo and Setsuna were watching. They had a very different idea of how this was going to go down. You want a rematch? You got it, exclaimed the pompous girl. No one disrespects the tea, but if you lose this time, you're going to be a part of my house servant. Really? A house servant? That's the worst you got, Izuku replied, surprised she didn't go straight for he must move out options or something that'll make sure he was out of her sight forever. Saiko brushed a bit of her hair back as she crossed her arms, saying, Getting rid of you would be too easy and abrupt for your crimes. But if you're under my services with 0 opposing contracts, then I can properly give you the prolonged hell you deserve. The things I can do to you, put you in a maid's outfit, make you clean my boots every day, the works. The cherry on top will be that the job is higher paying than any scam you cooked up in the last couple of years. The thing that humiliates you the most is what's giving you financial stability to be nearly middle class. It's ingenious. A bit kinky with the maid outfit, but okay, commented Izuku. A small blush came over Seiko's face. Shut up. We'll play this weekend. Fine. I'm home, Saiko announced after getting back home. A small smile appeared on her face when she saw Eri seemingly diddling in some craft involving ribbons right next to a physically exhausted La Brava. Upon her master's arrival, La Brava immediately jumped to her feet saying, Ah, you're back. Welcome home. Sorry for looking unsightly, I was just... It's fine, dear La Brava, Saiko assured her servant, putting her bags down and going over to them. How was little Eri? Did you two have fun? The eyes of the short stack grew wide as it slid to the side to look at the small girl who was still calming, tinkering with whatever she was doing. She had no idea as by the time she started, she was so tired and thankful that nothing bad happened that she stopped noticing. As long as Eri was in one spot she can watch her in. That girl can do whatever she wants, but how can that be explained to Saiko? Snapping her eyes back to the Lavender Girl, La Brava told her, Yes, we had a lot of fun, that's why I'm a bit tuckered out. That's good to hear, responded Saiko as the smile she had grown brighter. La Brava let out a sigh of relief that she was believed. Things could have gone back if she was probed further or if Eri had contradicted her statement. She doesn't know what got her to suddenly sit still, but it was like a switch that Eri became docile. Eri knew though because it was when she entered a room looking for something and of all people, she ran into Gentle trying to put together the PC with some difficulty. Are you having fun? Gentle had asked her, seemingly not disturbed at her arrival. Eri shrugged, replying, A bit. Are you looking for something? Nothing in particular, you moved like you were in search of something. Finding a place to hide from La Brava, I want someplace she won't think of looking. Ah, well that's fine. You can stay here if you want, just try not to cause a ruckus. Putting together your device is harder than anticipated, but I won't be deterred. I'm fine, I should probably keep moving anyways to make it harder for her. Ah, then be safe. Lady Saiko would be quite sad if you got hurt. I can bet but not care. I can understand why, either way, I'm glad you're here. I haven't seen Lady Saiko this happy in quite a while. I even made a special brew for her to take and make at school this morning. Still find that creepy that taking someone my age from their beloved caretaker can give that much joy to someone. It has less to do with that. Saiko has her own personal reasons for it. A big one is just having someone else live here. Her servants can't satisfy her. Me and La Brava are quite close to Lady Saiko, but we are employees hired by her father, not her. We do frequently need to leave her side to attend our duties. Saiko was unable to have friends when she was little, and the few she did have were more business acquaintances than actual friends. The only real exception of a long-time friend, Miss Momo, can only cover so much of our absence. Eri paused for a moment before saying, and that's my problem. How? I saw a story, but nothing that I can care about. Gentle snickered a bit. I think I'm finally finding some charm in that bluntness of yours. Eri didn't reply. I'll cut right to the point then, Gentle said. I'm guessing your caretaker, Izuku was his name, right? Hearing how Lady Saiko talks about him, I'm guessing there's a chance he might find a way to get you back. That club of hers is deeply important to her, and Lady Saiko shows some of the bad traits from her parents when she feels it's threatened. So may I ask that for the short time you might be here, can you give Lady Saiko a chance? I'm going to go get change, Saiko says, beginning to walk to her room. She was quickly stopped when Eri stopped out in front of her. The little girl sighed before holding up a red ribbon with a button sewed in the middle. Here, the young girl says. Saiko was petrified before letting out an extremely girlish scream before pulling the little girl up to cuddle her, much to Eri's annoyance. This is why she doesn't play nice, especially with the 1%. A few days later, the day of the match came in a flash where they met during the late evening. Gathered in the club room were 4 members, and the grand prize Eri. I'm taking Eri home, Izuku firmly states, taking a quick look at his watch before stating. She feels the more comfortable with me. We'll see, Saiko replied, taking out a deck of cards. I've taken the liberty to choose a game you're sure to agree with. It's similar to the one we played last time, except it's first to 19. You can have your desperate advantages. I'm still going to crush you in anything you try to pull from your sleeve. No tricks, Izuku remarked, taking off the watch and putting it in his pocket. As he sat at the table, he took a quick look at his watch before stating, just me and you. The pompous girl scoffed. She arranged the collar of her school uniform and readjusted the ribbon Eri made for her. Let's settle this once and for all. I will defeat you, then you shall know that. An hour later. Game over. Score, 9/10. Winner Izuku. I lost, mumbled an utterly shocked Saiko. Momo was breathing heavily as if her heart was about to burst out her heart, stating, that was too close. Setsuna, who had been enjoying a bowl of popcorn, added on, and that took an hour. Felt a lot shorter than that. Izuku had moved to pick Eri up, but the small girl had rushed to jump into his arms. Welcome back, the greenet told his younger sister, petting her head. He would turn to Saiko before announcing, I'm taking her home. I can't believe I lost, stated Saiko once again. She was left in a similar position she left Izuku a few days prior, staring at the board of her defeat. Off in her own little world. How could I let it come to this? Don't you dare dirty our family name by losing to trash. You weren't elevated up to lose to those below you. I let everyone down. Her arms began trembling. I should never lose. Sloppy, against an opponent like this you could have finished off the game 3 turns sooner. Alright then, back to the room with you. Maybe a bit more time there will smooth out your rough edges. The eyes of the Saiko looked like they were about to well up. You should always be aiming for the top. I didn't raise someone who was just going to be average. Wrong. Are you even trying? It's like you want to be just the alpha version of your sister. Or maybe it's my fault. Should have picked the other one when I had the chance. That damn beach must have seen this coming and gotten the slip on me. Her last few words were spoken silently. I am a failure. Quite the opposite, Izuku told her, catching Seiko's attention. He had gotten up, carrying Eri in his arms as he passed by her. For all my lies and deceptiveness, you were the first person in a long while that I had to push myself so hard to get a win. I don't really appreciate your attitude or much of you in general. I kinda really don't like you, with few things preventing that feeling from going to borderline hate. If it wasn't for the fact you're undeniably beautiful enough to be an enchantress, to me at least, I would say there's nothing enjoyable about being around you. Saiko blinked blankly at this. She wasn't sure if she was being roasted or complimented. It was a strange mix of both that didn't disturb her more than she was always, like cool clear water that can enter her system without trouble. Izuku continued, but if there's one thing I can't deny, besides how ungodly attractive you are strictly physically wise, is that you're talented beyond belief. If I'm being honest, I was dreading a rematch with you because of how hard I'll have to try. I can see why you were so ironcladed on the position. You worked hard to get it and deserve it. Honestly, I can never understand how such a wonderful young of marshmallow like yourself can survive with a guy like that. It's only because of my big brother that I survived. He knows what to do and say to make me feel happy. Serenity. Clear water that brings serenity. Taking a note out of Momo's book, Saiko looked away from Izuku and his olive branch. Brushing her hair straight, a small streak of pink went across her face as she mumbled, I wasn't talking to you, you know. Yeah, I know, Izuku replied, smiling as he began to walk off, which is why me and my sister are heading home to get some rest. See ya on Monday. Wait, Saiko called out. She sighed to herself as she stood up to face him. She announced, I just wanted to let you know that I'm expecting to see you and Eri first thing in the morning on Monday for the club meeting. No excuses this time. The siblings shared a look before Eri asked, Can I still keep the PC you built for me? I'll have Gentle send it over, Saiko said, rolling her eyes. Izuku then replied, We'll do our best. And with that they were gone. That was very nice of you, Momo said to her friend, approaching her. Setsuna was following behind, stating, Honestly, I was expecting some kind of meltdown leading to I'm going to blow up the planet because I'm mad I lost this type of reaction. Then again with that bashful nature I just witnessed maybe Momo isn't the one smitten with the new guy. Shut up. Saiko exclaimed to her clubmate that may speak a bit too much nonsense at times. And don't think you're off the hook yet, I still got my eye on you. Momo added in, Stop saying stuff like that. It's untruthful and could lead to misunderstandings. Turning away from her fuming clubmates, Setsuna gave a smug shrug. Saiko crosses her arms with a scowl as she states, He's just lucky that right now me doing this will not affect the club as our reputation will be maintained since I still come out of this as club president. Besides, I'm doing it for Eri. Since I can of her, I'm going to make it so that at least I can reliably watch over her, which in this case involves changing a rule. Are you sure you're ready for that? Momo asked, We might need something like that later. Saiko nodded, I think we reached a point where we no longer need it. We just got to make sure we don't make that part public. I think we're good on that front. Izuku isn't someone that gossip even when he has a chance to, assured Momo. Like I'll believe that guy is still a rat, just a smart one. I know he's up to no good. Outside of the school, Izuku and Eri had finally walked off the school's premises and down the street. Izuku waited until the school was completely out of sight before asking Eri, Did you get it? Yup, answered Eri. To everyone who was there in that club room, all they would witness was the coming to a head match between feuding factions where it ended with the club somewhat getting along. But little would any of them know that the events that transpired there have been purposely formulated to happen long beforehand. Depending on one's definition, the later statement can mean a variety of time. To make things simple for the simple-minded, let's say that the complete planning happened on the day Setsuna made the deal with Izuku. More precisely, the night when they went home. Guess that person was right about that Setsuna girl. I knew there was some argument, but she seemed to be raring to sell out her team. Thought it'll be harder to get her to do so, Eri said. As Izuku cleared the table and got out the materials for the night, he said, Predators and especially snakes love to strike at things they think they can easily take on as prey. I was honestly expecting this to occur later, but with this whole club rules and club president wrench thrown in the cog, it's a welcomed surprise. Especially since she gave us so much useful information. Remember to call Momo later on to set up your match. We can keep to the first part of Setsuna's plan. She seems like the person who will give us a bone at the beginning to get us in a false sense of security. That's fine, that'll save us some time planning. We don't need to spend too long planning on how to deal with Setsuna. We're going to have to fly on the edge of our seats for her. No doubt she could betray us, but as long as I can see it coming I can mentally prepare myself for what she might pull. Her abilities and misleading antics are amazing for the alluring trickster, but I'm better at playing the game. Then shall we get started on the main objective? Yes, this situation may have sped up a golden opportunity. What's going to take up most of our brain power is finding a way to get what we need from Seiko's house. Outstanding performance as usual, Izuku complimented, holding out his hand, Can I please have it? Eri dug her hand deep into her hair, pulling out a flash drive that seemed to be tied still with hair. I'll think about what you said, Eri stated, leaving the room where she spoke to Gentle. She wandered around the house for a few hours, keeping track of all the rooms and any possible security. Finally, she found the room she was looking for, but instead of going in she just made a mental note of where this room was and what she might need. Then turned around and went to find La Brava, thinking, I have a few days to get this done, I don't need to rush it. After untying it, she placed it in her older brother's palm. It was hard hiding it. Saiko was obsessed with dressing me up so I couldn't make a proper pocket to hide it, and I obviously couldn't put it in a bag to not look suspicious. Thankfully she only brushes my hair once in the morning and night. All I had to do was hide it somewhere in her house until today, and sneak it in after they finished doing my hair. I waited until a few minutes before we left just in case they wanted to do a last-minute brushing. As Izuku pocketed the flash drive, he petted Eri's little head with a wide smile. You're real reliable, you know that. I always am. Good point. Sorry about putting you in the field like that. It's fine, I know you hate it anyway. At least you told me of the possibility ahead of time so I could agree to it. A 50-50 chance, Eri had said in response to something Izuku had told her. Maybe 50-50 isn't accurate, Izuku stated, but basically there's a chance you might have to get it from Seiko's house yourself. It really depends on if I win or lose, and I'm going to be honest, I'm using a really simple trick on her. Please let her be too stupid to notice. I don't mind doing it if I lose, but I really don't want to have to spend days with that girl. I'll probably just come out hating her more. Don't be like that. I promise if it comes to that I'll treat you to something amazing after to make up for it. Now, let's start building it. We got a lot to prepare. That's a mind pleaser, Izuku replied. Good timing as well because I have a long night of work ahead of me. In their condo, Izuku held up the flash drive before stating, "This is where my game begins." After hours of tiring work, Izuku was still running like a machine. With the exception of battling against Nezu for a spot in the school, he never looked more determined and dedicated to a task before. At this point, Eri was practically napping on her big brother's lap as he worked. "Eri," Izuku called out to her, "if you're tired you should lay in bed and sleep properly. I'm going to be up for a few more hours. This may also be bad for your back later." "No," replied a rebellious Eri, nuzzling her dreary head against his chest to make her comfortable in defiance. "I had to spend such a long time without seeing you or properly contacting you. I need this." The greenet lowered one of his arms to pet Eri's head, not looking up from the screen but sincerely saying, "All right you little bugger, you can stay. Just don't whine in the morning if your back hurts." "I'm still going to. You agreed to let me unnecessarily complain about stuff. You know, on the night you saved me. You're not planning to turn back on that now, are you?" "Of course not. I promised I was going to spoil you and I intend on keeping it." "Haha, yes, obey your god," Eri said, keeping her monotonous expression. "Entertain me forever. Don't push your luck. You're filled with divine adorableness, but even God needed a day of rest. I just hope I keep a fine line between being kiddish spoiled and spoiled rotten. Thankfully your random hate of rich people makes that a lot easier. Though I might feel guilty if you grow up to be an envious person." "That reminds me," yawned Eri, her little hands going over to cover her mouth. "Do you feel a bit guilty about how we tricked the girls tonight? You mean how that ribbon you made for Saiko that she wore during our match had a sensing device in the button that telegraphed Seiko's heart to my watch, where I was able to tell how fast her heart was beating by feeling how rapidly the hands of my watch were spinning in my pocket, making it easier to predict her moves by allowing me to be able to tell when she's about to play her important card because her heartbeat usually significantly rises. No FCK Saiko, in every way possible. When did you care for the 1%? I meant the girls in general, pretty sure we convinced them that they experienced some climatic bloodbath battle between two powerhouses. Not to mention everything we did before." Hello, look at this Eri," Izuku says, holding out a paper from the pile of notes that were made from the information they got from Setsuna. It wasn't supposed to be a main topic in the pile but a simple post-it note, but this duo was about to turn that post-it note into an essay. He goes over to his computer to check something. "What is it, Izuku?" Turns out Saiko is the middle child of her family. Her mom and dad had a nasty divorce and it seems they came to some messed up conclusion of split custody of the kids, probably through a game. The oldest was able to duck out of most of this crap due to her age. Saiko got dad for what seems like because her quirk had the most potential, and mom got the youngest. Separated family, huh? They probably haven't seen each other for a couple of years, Izuku thought, rubbing his chin. Let's see if there's a hole to fill. "Oh, then yeah, not really a lot I can feel guilty over," Izuku answered. "I'm more happy we got everything in just the right way that I wanted it to be." "Did we, yawn really? Besides the information, what else did we get?" Eri asked. Her eyelids felt so very heavy. "Well, of course you can now be in the club room since Saiko changed the room and I don't have to be club president. Honestly, I didn't want to be president anyways. I would have given up the position as soon as I changed the rules and fulfilled my agreement to Setsuna. The downside if I did become it is Saiko would be having a fit about it for possibly months, which might cause her to try to reverse my rule change and it'll bring way too much attention to me. The way things are right now, Saiko is happy in her position. Her bragging to the school of her first victory against me will take off some of the heat on me about barging into the club, and I'm in the good graces of most of the clubmates. At this point my only concern is how Setsuna will take this." "Oh, neat," commented Eri. Her drowsiness was now making her barely conscious. "The girls will be fine either way," Izuku told her, picking up a paper that they've been writing on for the last couple of hours. "So far I've barely done anything to them that'll leave a long-term effect. So what if I cheated in all our games? I needed to get something from them. As long as I don't do anything that'll make them miss me for more than a month if I disappeared, I'm good. Still, thought it would be more fun to see how things would have gone if you made a strategy that involved you actually playing against them. If I did, the odds would be in their favor but I'll still have a decent chance to win. Saiko would have definitely been the worst one to deal against with Momo as a respectable second." As the young girl slowly drifted off into a deep sleep, she muttered, "It would have been fun to watch. Eri, zzzzzzzz." Izuku softly pets her head again. The usually devilish smile he had on was gone again. Except this time it wasn't some depressed expression but just a regular look as he worked. He mumbles to himself, "I'm sure you would probably smile if you saw me having fun playing an honest game. Maybe another day I can find some way to make it look as such, but after spending the last few days acting I'm pretty burnt out. If only there was a way to make it authentic so I can make it happen sooner." Sadly, the ability to actually enjoy playing a game has long since been gone. What is wrong with all of you? Please don't make me do it. Where's your humanity? That was robbed of me. Being so casuist is the only way I can even get through a game. Oh well, I didn't come here for games. Izuku printed out a stack of papers, making sure to not wake Eri as he went to grab it. Looking at the papers, he couldn't help but have a true-to-self, genuine smile as he looked on the page. On the front cover it was a list of printed names. Nana Shimura, Tenko Shimura, Sorihiko Torino, Tashinori Yagi, Bakugo, Hisashi Midoriya. Found you, knew you would still be kicking. The question now is where, Izuku said to himself. He thanked everyone, including Saiko's existence and her a whole of a father for leading him to this breadcrumb. There was more he had to do, but this was a start. His hand was shaking a bit from a bundle of rage that was building in his body as he stared at the last name of the list. Either way, can't wait till we meet again. I haven't forgotten what you did to me. A major key in winning any game is understanding the rules and being able to comprehend all the numbers of the game. If one doesn't know the rules, how can they properly take strategic moves and plan ahead? Or in the case of our green-haired mastermind, how can they cheat the rules? It's those who have mastery knowledge over these components that can control the game to their favor with the right tweaks. Recently, this concept has been explored with a certain group of girls. In the room of the Killer Queens, the trio was head high in work. It was mostly Saiko and Momo's efforts pulling the wagon forward. Setsuna was half-heartedly assisting them, delegating most of her effort in transporting documents and organization. Regardless, they were moving like a well-oiled machine. The only reason their professional sphere of productive silence was broken was because the blue-haired elitist let out an extremely aggravated groan, prompting Momo to ask, "What's the matter, Saiko?" "I can't believe that guy," grumbled the moody pompous girl. "The nerve to not show up." "Who?" the ponytail girl questioned since Saiko didn't answer her first. "She's talking about Izuku," Setsuna explained, moving another stack of papers. Another outburst emerged from Saiko. "That man caused all this ruckus to get into the club, attempted to dethrone me as club president. Came pretty damn close to it," Setsuna snarkily stated, sporting a sharp toothy grin. Shut up. Just saying, if that second match had the position on the line, we would have been under new leadership. That is unless he decides to take pity on you from seeing you almost CR. "I said to hold your tongue, that's not the point I'm making," interrupted Saiko, her cheek flashing red before she quickly gets the subject back on the track she desired. "After everything he put us through, that rat thinks he can miss our next club meeting and leave us with all the work. Oh, the nerve. Just wait till he comes back, I'm going to show him." Slight relief filled Momo knowing it was just about another one of Seiko's melodramatic moments. After last week I can do without any club drama, Momo thought. She turned to Saiko before saying, "I don't approve on missing meetings either, but in his defense, it's not as though he had anything incentive to come in to help. We haven't assigned him any task or even a position where he needs to monitor anything. What would you have him do?" Saiko scoffed, "Something to help contribute. Even a monkey can relieve some workload if you direct it enough." Maybe we should invest in some shock collars." Smirking, Setsuna commented, "Kinky. Don't you start." The short exchange got Momo to giggle. The kind girl failed to hide it. "And what are you laughing at?" Saiko asked, her face blushing pin from hearing her longtime friend chuckle. Nothing, Momo told her, calming herself down as her mind drifted to another topic. "Though, I do feel like I'm forgetting something." Saiko slanted her eye before saying, "Please tell me it has nothing to do with the work we're currently doing. We already wasted a lot of time to get this done since we were distracted last week." "No, thankfully it's not that. We're already a bit behind since we were so distracted last week," Momo told her, pressing a finger against her forehead. As she pondered over what was probing at her mind, she stared at the plaque on the wall of the Killer Queen's emblem, the glorious quad-pointed golden crown. "It's just, feels like I'm missing something." "If it's not related to what we're doing right now, then you can wait to think about it later," Saiko told her friend, going back to chipping away at her own share of the work. "We got work to do." "We should be done by the afternoon anyways," Setsuna stated, cracking her knuckles. "Don't know why pretty Miss Lavender here is so upset over it. It's always been us three when it comes to managing the important club matters. Him being here won't change much. If anything, it'll just be him and his sister lounging around, and that's my job. It'll make more sense for him to stay home and do him." Saiko scoffed. "I can only imagine what that man is getting himself into." "I've analyzed all the data," stated Izuku. A wide grin appeared on his face. He was staring longingly in front of him, keeping his eye on the prize. "You have?" questioned his partner in crimery. "Then we're set to carry out the plan." "Yeah, our goal is within reach." "Good, time to execute Operation RT. Roger." With duo confirmation, they jumped into action. Izuku consecutively tosses a bunch of rings and they all land on the poles of the ring toss stand they were playing at the local amusement park. "Wow, I'm impressed," the stand owner states. "The 10 minutes of conniving monologuing you two did beforehand was weird and annoying. But hey, it brought out an interesting result." Modestly, Izuku rubbed the back of his head, giving a tiny bow. "Sorry about that, we got a bit carried away." It's fine. Ironically, your sibling scheming got this place a little more traction than it was before and kept me entertained for a bit," shrugged the stand keeper. He jabbed a thumb toward a display of toys and knickknacks, telling them, "Now pick your prize." After he selected a small wristband that had the theme of a video game she liked, the pair continued to the rest of the amusement park. As usual, Eri was hanging off Izuku's back, enjoying the trip like a child looking out the window during a long car ride with their parents. You having fun today, Eri? Izuku asked his sister, exploring the area so she can see what interests her. Eri responded, talking in her usual monotone expression. Yeah, today had its amusing moments. Why do you ask? Just making sure. We've won the games in most of these stands, yet you keep giving away the prizes you win. They don't interest me. I already got the green bunny you bought for me last week and a bunch of other stuff. Keeping these cheap versions that have no meaning to me would just be hoarding like a capitalist pig, and I rather keep away from that feeling for a while after spending over an entire day in an aristocrat's house. Izuku let out a chuckle. You really hated it there. I didn't expect living in such a fancy mansion being cuddled to be such torture. It wasn't like it was bad living there, just annoyed at how well it was living there, Eri stated. Her cheek puffed up as she remembered why she lived in such a symbol of inequality. Can't believe you actually had me sleep there, more than once in a row. Sorry, said Izuku, putting his hands together apologetically as he looked back to the nugget riding his back. I thought it'll be an excellent way to both get what we needed and keep my promise to spoil you. It's no fun being spoiled through endless money. It's like if I was thirsty during a hot day and you installed a water fountain next to me. Sure, it solves the issue, but the lack of thought or fun makes it dull to experience. It would have been so much better if you gave me homemade lemonade, Eri told him. So you prefer it when people struggle to spoil you? Izuku asked, snarkily shaking his head. Saiko did interrogate over your hysterical nature. I don't see eye to eye with that woman on a mountain of things, but hearing that might just make me agree with her on you being a bit unhinged. No, I simply prefer the way you spoil me, explained Eri, her puffy face relaxing into a small pout. You find the way that does it best for me. Guess that means there's no break for me, Izuku says as he shakes his head. My, can't believe I made such a bold promise with such a troublesome girl. The pout on the girl's face grew hearing this, as she squinted at him, her arms gripped tightly around Izuku's collarbone. I hope that doesn't mean you're thinking of backing out on your promise. Of course not, human beings need to vent once in a while. Hope that doesn't offend you, Izuku mockingly told her. It doesn't. Good, now where to stop by next. After a bit of walking, something caught Eri's eye and the little girl lightly tugged on Izuku's emerald hair. Izuku went, feeling the strain from her small hands. As he looked back, the boy spotted a fairly lit ice cream stand. The owner was ringing its tiny bell. Izuku nudges his head in the direction of the shop, asking Eri, oh I see, you want one. Nodded Eri. All right, let's get you some. It was hard to order a cone of vanilla for the child. After paying the price, they were about to take their leave when they heard a lively voice call out to them. Hey, who are you? Where are you? Right as Izuku turned to see who it was, a pink blur zoomed right in front of the siblings. Out of instinct, Izuku's body tensed up as his hands quickly lifted themselves defensively toward his core before suddenly it turned to his arms calmly crossing themselves. Whoever approached them had no signs of intent that concerned Izuku, so out of morbid curiosity, they waited to see who this person was and what they wanted. A more bubbly-looking girl, with pink hair, circular yellow eyes, and caramel skin took a quick breather after just sprinting toward them. Thank God I caught you when I did, she said, having recovered. She held up a finger and tilted it to Izuku before stating, you almost made a huge mistake. A mistake, Izuku thought. He went through a dozen possibilities in his mind for what he could have done but couldn't come to a solid conclusion. He paid the vendor, so he should be good to go, or is there some norm in this part of town he didn't know about that might have gotten him a few scowls for not doing? He asked the strange girl, what would that be? The pink-haired girl raised her finger high up into the air before sending it down, pointing directly to a metal device on the vendor's stand. You almost forgot to ring the bell. What? Was all Izuku could think of to say. The whiplash left him slightly mentally stunned from the weird arrangement of events that took place. The bell, the girl repeated, smiling as she frantically pointed at the bell the vendor was previously ringing. You almost left before ringing the bell. Even with that explanation, it didn't help Izuku's whiplash. Why? Izuku had to ask. He wanted to walk away, but he couldn't resist digging a bit deeper. The toffee-skinned girl smirked as she stated, it's the principle. The joyous memories of childhood that always emerge when you hear the iconic ring is only amplified when you grow older and are allowed to press the holy button yourself. Somehow, with every word she says, Izuku's mind becomes even more confused. At this point, Izuku's threshold of randomness was maxed out for an interaction that had no benefit to him. He took a step back and gladly said, I think I'm good. No, try it, the girl tells him. With lightning speed she moved up to grasp his wrist with both hands. The grip she had on him was impressively strong for someone of her stature. She turned back to the vendor and asked, you don't mind, right? The vendor gestures for her to go ahead. With a thankful smile, she nodded to the vendor before turning back to Izuku and tugging at him. See, it's fine, give it a ring. The way she was tugging at Izuku's wrist was weird. She pulled as if she was struggling to move the green at an inch, yet her grip strength told the opposite story. Izuku saw no point in doing what this random girl asked, but he figured it'll be easier to go along than resisting. With the minor effort, he allowed Mina to pull him out and he tapped the bell, hearing the glorious chime ring out. Grrrrrrring. Doesn't it feel relieving? The girl says, her face melting into a satisfied expression. Izuku stared at the pinkette, still smiling but wanted to bail out of there more than an office worker at their horrible company party, transcendent. Well, the pinkette says, gesturing to the little girl clinging to his back, let her try it out as well. No, Eri immediately responded. Just do it, Izuku whispered to her, the quicker you do the faster we can leave. The little sister mumbled, fine. Izuku leaned down, allowing Eri the space to reach out and ring the ice cream stand's bell. Grrring. Grring. Gring, gring, gring. There was no explaining it, but Eri was enthralled by the bell. It was hypnotic to her. The pink-haired lady laughed, giving an encouraging clap before stating, haha, see, children love the bell. Ah yes, bets. Great, Izuku says as he steps back, putting Eri out of range of the bell. There was the tiniest whimper Izuku heard behind him that made him lean forward to hear one last chime before standing up. He gave this mysterious girl a quick goodbye before he started going on his way. Thank you for this experience. We'll keep you in our hearts. Goodbye. As Izuku walked away, he sighed to himself. That was a string of events he never expected to experience today. At least it was over. Sue, have you two tried some of the rides here? The girl said, walking by the siblings. How casually she was walking beside them, as if they came here together, or that her continued existence near them was requested. No, Izuku answered, looking straight as to not give her too much attention. He tried increasing his speed a bit to outpace her, but she was quick to catch up. We've mostly just tried out the games. Really, how could you come to an amusement park and not go on any of the rides? We just never had much fun on them. Maybe you didn't have the right people to show you. The pinkette gave a tiny jump in front of Izuku, causing him to stop in his tracks, and I'll gladly fill that spot. It's as Mina escorted them to all the different kinds of rides, each one suggesting some way to increase the excitement levels. Most were simple things such as putting their arms up during certain parts of a roller coaster. Others were weird, such as having a contest of courage to see who would go the longest on a ride without grabbing onto the bar out of fear. Surprisingly, Eri won every time. Along with their adventure, Mina asked a few questions. Are you two new here? Yes, we moved in a few weeks ago. Wow, that's awesome. Where were you before? Nowhere special. I can barely remember the street name. Oh okay, what prompted you guys to move? Same as any person, better opportunities and a change of scenery is nice. What's your favorite food? Puss what? Your favorite food, what is it? Why are you asking that all of the sudden? Pure curiosity, not everything needs to be an interrogative question. We're here to have fun after all. Now what is it? Is it something weird like cold soba? No, it's katsudon. Oh, what boring. Boy, how is it boring? I'm joking. Despite everything, Izuku still kept his smile, and Eri seems to be having her unique way of expressing fun, even performing the rare act of walking on her feet in public. Eventually, Izuku stated he was feeling too drained to go on another speedy ride and suggested the same for Eri, who looked one sharp turn away from ejecting everything Izuku's bought for her today. He promised to spoil her, not make her be wasteful. Thankfully, Mina had a ride for that as well, or at least one that Eri could ride, the classic merry-go-round ride. Izuku helped the same girl get up on the horse she desired to ride before watching her on the sideline. The pink-haired woman who was accompanying them was guiding Eri on what to do to make even this ride more enjoyable. Use your imagination on this one, Mina called out. Imagine you're riding some mythical world you've always wanted to explore. Stoic as always, Eri told her. That sounds silly. Just try it. Mina tells her. A wide smirk appeared on her face. I'll try, but I don't see how. Eri suddenly gasped as she suddenly visualized herself into the world of one of her favorite video game series. Seeing the expression on her face, the smile on Mina's face grew as her eyes suddenly sparkled with determination. That'll keep her occupied for a few minutes. The pinkette then grabbed Izuku's wrist again and pulled him away. This time she looked to be trying to move him away. Hey, can I talk to you for a bit? Why not here? I prefer to keep Eri within eyesight. Izuku told her, putting some resistance to her attempt to pull him away. We're only going to the blind spot for anyone riding it. We'll still be able to watch over her. Not too many people are here anyways. This'll only take a minute, insisted Mina. Izuku shrugged, going along with her as she brought him around the back of the ride that was obscured by a wall. Just as she promised, Izuku could still see Eri just fine through the slits. Izuku asked in his charismatic tone, so, what did you want? Are you okay? What? Izuku asked. This was the second no, third time today Mina popped a random question at a random time that made the boy confused. Mina took a step closer, allowing for her radiating presence to brush against Izuku, looking into his grinning face. She repeated herself, are you okay? Izuku was snickering, waving his hand as he says, of course I'm fine. I've been here with the fun guide all day, why wouldn't I be? Almost as soon as Izuku finished speaking, Mina took another step closer. He could feel her body heat warming his skin, and the caramel-skinned girl reached out with her hands to touch Izuku's cheek. At first, Mina caresses it slowly before moving the pointer fingers over to the edges of his mouth, before stretching them upward to curve his lips into a clownishly big smile. Like most people, Izuku didn't like getting his face stressed by strangers and politely brushed her hands away from his face, asking, what are you doing? Oh sorry, apologized Mina, rubbing the back of her neck. That's just been disturbing me all day. My face, Izuku stated, giving a comedic half-smirking weird look at the girl. Well, it wouldn't be the first time I've heard that, but hey, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. No, it's your smile. Why does it seem so fake? The greenette cranked out a snicker, throwing his hands up saying, all right, you got me. This place isn't exactly my scene. I'm only here for my sister. She had a rough time recently and I wanted to make it up to her by taking her out to a place she might be able to enjoy. Thinking this was one of the few strange cases where someone is good at catching a lie, he thought he could throw her off by saying a mostly true lie. He was here to pay back Eri for getting her involved to get the information. But it was also a way to waste time as it was going to take a while to properly mine all the data they stole. As he continued to speak, Izuku turned away and began walking back to where they came from. It was quite difficult because she has weird taste, so I thank you for seemingly lifting her spirits. Eri doesn't like walking outside our home, and if she could ride off my back she would. Wait, Mina exclaimed, swiftly positioning himself in front of Izuku again. Don't change the subject off yourself. You may not have noticed, but I spotted you a couple of times before I approached you at the ice cream stand. That revelation actually surprised Izuku a bit. He asked, how? I don't think I wouldn't notice an appearance like yours popping into view. He lightly fs one of the yellow horns on top of her head. The caramel-skinned woman quickly clamped down on her head to cover her head, giving Izuku an aggravated pout for fing her horn. I was on a ride during most of them, but surprisingly I kept spotting you and your sister, Mina explained, rubbing her head. And each time I saw you with the exact same smile. It was so plastic at one point I thought you were some new generation robot the girl was operating. Izuku chuckled at that comment, with how often he's carrying her around but swayed by her. Well, it wasn't that far off of a comparison of their relationship. Aha, see, you were actually laughing this time, unlike all the other times I told a joke and you pretended to enjoy it, which was a hard pill to swallow because I had hoped you were just a jaded laugher. But either way I can tell the difference now. Crossing his arms, Izuku casually asked her, how are you so sure? I can just tell, I'm quite good at reading emotions at times, Mina insisted. At times, I can be a little off with my assumptions and predictions, but when I really feel like I know, I know. Mina then rested a hand on her waist and power pointed toward Izuku, and I know your smile right now is faker than an implant. The boy shrugged again. It wasn't the first time he encountered someone like this. Like I said before, amusement parks aren't my forte. I'm just trying to make my sister happy. I can understand that, but what's off is what I feel from you isn't someone who's just here because his parents told him to take his sister out. At worst your fake smile would have annoyance leaking out, Mina said. She walked a bit closer to Izuku and whispered her next words as to make sure no one else could overhear them. But when I look at your face, all I can feel is unbridled rage and boundless malice locked behind it. The boy's eyes shot open hearing that. His hands vibrantly shook before he quickly clutched them, hiding them inside his pocket. As his breath increased a smudge, he took a step back to get space, but Mina was relentless and pursued him, keeping the distance she had before but not letting him get away. And beneath all that, the girl continued to say, a small but dense of sorrow. Stopping in his tracks, Izuku stood still, knowing he wasn't going to shake Mina easily. That's why I wanted to see if you were okay. Mina finally ended. Izuku sighs, giving a half-hearted defeated expression. That's quite the ability you got there. It's a gift, boasted Mina, before quickly getting back on subject. But seriously, are you okay? Not so much, confessed Izuku. He takes a deep breath before picking himself up. Recently me and my sis got a call that the uncle we extremely knew well, and helped us out when our parents died recently passed away. I'm still reeling from the news, but I'm trying to keep my head up as I'm not sure how Eri is taking it. If it wasn't obvious, it's hard at times knowing exactly how she's feeling. Oh, I see, Mina says, her body relaxes a bit. Izuku lowered his smile for a bit, looking away like a guilty teen before telling her, I'm a bit tense as they've yet to give us any conclusive information surrounding his death, and I'm just mad we can't find out why. My uncle was a good man, but he did have his enemies. I want to make sure it was a relatively peaceful transfer of his soul. The pinkette nodded her head. That explains it. I'm sorry for your loss. It's fine, things It's Newt. Mina suddenly exclaimed, throwing her fist down to exaggerate her point. The abruptness stunned Izuku silent. You're clearly distressed, which is why I've come to help. Seeing a chance to speak, Izuku replied, help. Yep, I came over because I wanted to see you smile and enjoy your time here, for real. Mina declared, smiling at the boy. Raising an eyebrow, Izuku asked, how? By spending more time with you. No, yes. Izuku stepped closer to Mina, getting barely an inch away from her because he quietly says, I would much prefer it if you left me alone. Well, I think it'll be better for your health if I stick around. We're going to have to play a game over this, aren't we? Izuku sighed. Mina rapidly shook her head. Izuku forgot how tedious life can be when tedious anything can be. On the bright side, it also means there's technically a solution you can make advantageous to yourself. The greenette cracked his arms and loosened his shoulder joints before stating, all right, let's do it. If you win, I'll leave you and your sister alone for the day, Mina says, pumping herself up as she prepares for the upcoming game. But if I win, you must compile to one demand. the day. Fine, deal, Izuku replies. He took out a pack of cards from his back pocket, and took out a pack of cards he brought here for a game he had his eyes on. Now would be the best time for a few test runs. I'll be choosing the game we play. Oh my gosh, Momo suddenly yelled, shooting out of her seat. The sudden jolt almost caused her seat to tip over. Thankfully, the ponytailed girl was quick to make sure that didn't happen. What? Saiko exclaimed. Her suddenly jumping up gave the lavender girl a tiny bit of fright. I remember what was happening today. Momo snapped her head towards Setsuna. I need you to guide me somewhere. The brunette just stared at her clubmate for a moment before tossing the magazine she was reading aside. She wasn't seriously working anyways, jumping to her feet and saying, shit, all right, where you want to go? As the two girls conversed heading toward the door to leave, Saiko called out to them. Hey, we're in the middle of something. All right, Momo said, turning back to her friend to say, do you mind taking care of the rest while I'm away? What? Are you insane? The raven-haired girl clapped her hands together as she begged, please, I really need to go right now. Yeah, I'm sure you can handle it all. I've seen you solve problems 1,000 times harder than this, and won games even I'll admit I couldn't win no matter what trick I used. Surely this won't even be a speck against your capabilities. Well, of course, Saiko blushed while she giggled, indulging in her own glory. With a bashful hand wave, she told the girls, it's always flattering when you girls finally take the time to notice the impressive skill that carries this club. You are not a hard girl to please, aren't you? Commented Setsuna, slowly shaking her head. That rose a reaction from the lavender girl, turning red with embarrassment as she shouted at them, be quiet and go already. Thank you so much for this, I'll make it up to you, Momo told her as she left with Setsuna. With the room to herself, Saiko went back to work mumbling, stupid Setsuna, what does she know? It's only courtesy to acknowledge someone's smarts. I'll show her, I'll do the crap out of this paperwork all by myself. When the merry-go-round finally came to a halt, Eri petted the loyal plastic horse for such a great adventure. Thanks, Lil Miss Hooferton. Let us seize and destroy the means of production again someday, the girl states before hopping off. It was only then did she notice that her big brother wasn't where he was before. Eri, I'm over here, Izuku's voice called out to him. The small girl looked to the side and saw her brother waiting for her. Right next to him and happily waving at her was Mina. Did you two go somewhere? Eri asked, walking over to them. There was a short pause before Izuku answered, you can say that. Anyways, let's go. Oh, we're going home. Not yet, Mina here wants us to go to one more place before we head home. The pink-haired woman jumped in front of Izuku to get on eye level with Eri. Yeah, it'll be super fun. Don't worry, it's not another ride. With no one being able to resist, they were quickly hurried along to whatever destination Mina had in mind. The entire time Izuku had a vacant look on his face as one thought haunted his mind. Did I really just lose that game? It wasn't as if Izuku had never lost before, even he had his fair share of losses. A couple were for learning purposes, others he had to lose for a bigger victory later on, and some he simply got outclassed. He would obviously make sure that games that had a higher risk to them he wouldn't take the chance unless he was sure he had a chance to win, and he would take it as seriously as he could. A simple leave me alone for a day you're annoying wouldn't be able to prompt such efforts from him, but that doesn't excuse the nature of how he lost. It wasn't his best, neither was it a throw, it just suddenly happened and he had his guard down. It was so sudden he didn't even see it. He was sure he was going to win in his next move, but then he didn't. Izuku tried to relive the scene in his head, but all he could remember was how the caramel skin of Mina started turning pink and her sclere blacken. The greenette was bringing up the rear of the group as they walked. His green eyes glared at the woman who was talking up Eri. It must have been her cheat, Izuku concluded. Only a cheat can cause the paranormal event that took place. I'll have to find a way to observe it later on. Whatever it is, it's extremely powerful. This girl may not seem like it, but the way she just got the jump on me was utterly genius. I was lucky nothing important was on the line. Tisk, how careless of me. Oh, there you are. The group heard a familiar voice call out. They all turned to see Momo with Setsuna running toward them. When the pair of girls finally caught up to them, Momo needed a minute to sit down and rest from running all the way here, so Setsuna took over the role of speaking. I got an explanation from Momo on the way here, Setsuna said, passing some water for Momo to drink. The brunette can respect the determination, but she was going to gas out right before doing the thing she was in such a rush to do. She was better off going at a slower pace. Apparently Momo was supposed to meet with Mina here today. I'm so sorry, Mina, panted Mom, barely able to lift her head. It slipped my mind due to some club troubles. Thank God I brought Setsuna along to find you all. I was so worried I would have to randomly run around until I spotted you. Mina giggled. It's fine, Momo-chan. I know you meant no harm, or else you wouldn't have exhausted yourself coming over. Thankfully I found someone else to spend the day with. The sharp-toothed girl commented. What luck that you two met each other. Guess you got the celebration you wanted after all. Yeah, but it's not complete without Sai, Mina replied. That nickname Mina just said even caused Izuku to raise an eyebrow. Sai. You even know Saiko. Of course I do, silly, Mina told him, planting her hands on her waist. We're all part of the same club in UA after all. Huh, reacted Izuku. How many surprises will this girl throw out? Seeing the boy's reaction, Mina grew a smirk as she said, "Didn't expect that, did ya?" Izuku shook his head. "Not at all. I've been in the club for quite a few days and never saw you around." "Boo, you're the new guy they told me about," Mina exclaimed, looking completely surprised at this revelation. Wow, talk about lucky, look like newcomers are attracted to each other. After finally being about to properly breathe, Momo piped in, "Mina's was suspended from school, and today marked the last day of it. I'm the fourth member of the Killer Queens," Mina declared, doing a tiny spin before springing up into the air. "Not only am I your clubmate, but now I'm your official happiness coach." The girls all tilted their heads at the last part. What was a happiness coach? Izuku rubbed his forehead. He hasn't had a happy day in weeks, and he was sure this strange girl wasn't going to make it any better. The only piece of joy he could take from this was that at least he had another interesting teammate with a strong quirk. One day it could come in handy. Smart people always want to battle each other. It's the same reason why the strong always want to fight other strong people, and why anyone exceptional in any set of skills often finds themselves being somewhat competitive to others in their field. Validation. Anyone can learn a skill and proclaim greatness in it, especially if they're the only one in an area who partake in the activity. The only way one can truly know if they have talent in a skill is by comparing it against another person who is invested in the skill. It may not always be about winning, but just knowing that their capabilities are real enough to boast. Similar to how barbarians would always brawl to prove their strengths, the genius will always battle to prove their intellect. In the clubroom of the Killer Queens, members were celebrating the return of a classic member when Momo came in with important news. "We've been challenged," the classic girls of the Killer Queens all said. While they looked quite surprised, Izuku, who was accompanying Eri as she enjoyed the PC Saiko had gentle bring in, was more confused than anything. "Challenge? What's that supposed to mean?" the Greenet asked, petting Eri's head when he noticed she won another of her online games. "Oh wait, does this have anything to do with that treasure war you mentioned before?" Momo would nod, stating, "Yes, the important part about the treasure wars isn't just the event itself but the preparations each club does for it. It'll mainly be taking place on school grounds, so many clubs scramble to gain influence, make alliances, or have control over key areas and places that are of interest to them they would want to have access to during the event. I'm guessing this challenge match being issued to us is some preemptive assault," Izuku asked, arranging himself to be laying on his back. During his research, he has come across information mentioning both the treasure wars and challenge matches, but both came out extremely vague. In a lot of instances, he found inconsistent accounts, especially involving the treasure wars. Izuku wasn't sure if this was deliberate or not, but he'll tip his hat to Nezu for finding a way to keep outside people on getting information about school events. Challenge matches is how clubs officially settle competing claims, with the reward being what they were conflicting about. Answered surprisingly of all people Saiko from the group. She was reading one of her magazines while sipping on a cold drink but was listening in. Maybe the blue moon was summoned and she decided to show some kindness by nicely explaining it. Or maybe since her position has been secured through a perceived victory and Izuku isn't going anywhere no matter what she did, her aggression toward the only male member of her club satiated itself. Regardless of which, she continued explaining, pressing a hand on her chin as she muttered, "Though it's way too early for these types of things to be popping up. Either we're dealing with amateurs or a group who's way too over their heads. It's the official way to do this, isn't it? Why are you acting like it's some taboo?" Izuku asked, turning from his position to look at the lavender-haired girl. The pompous strategist broke away from her thinking pose to demeaningly scoff at the Greenet, smugly smirking at him as she says, "Oh right, forgot we needed to teach the rat basic tactics of civilized conflict." "Ah, there it is," Izuku chuckled, looking unfazed. "It didn't feel right without a daily dose of you being a beach. That's the point of the club name, we're beaches you don't mess with." "Until I did," Izuku snarkily replied, giving a smile that carried just as much spite as she had toward him. "And I remembered wrecking so much sit in here that you had to worry for your reputation. CCKY aren't we?" The lavender girl replied, her smirk turned into a frown as she slapped down what she was reading on the table. "Come here, how about we play a game on my terms and see how long you'll be talking sit for?" Similar to carping food critic when served an undesirable-looking dish, the Greenet raised a dismissive hand before stating, "Beach please." "I'll. Can you guys stop cursing so much? We have a child in the room." Mina exclaimed. She had run over to cover the ears of Eri, who was looking indifferent to the whole situation as she cared to focus more on her current game. The little girl rolled her eyes at her ears being covered as she mumbled, "Your concerns are useless. I've played on Xbox Live before. There isn't a curse word I haven't heard before. You two should cool it. There's no need to be insulting each other like that anyways," scolded Mina before snapping her head toward Izuku. "You know all that negativity isn't going to bring chuckle anytime soon. Same with you Saiko. You keep that attitude up and you'll get a wrinkle." Izuku shrugged, easily getting back in a position to relax near his gremlin of a sister. On the other side, Saiko felt her face as she thought about what Mina said. She only gave a tiny huff as she settled back down herself. Momo stepped up saying, "Mina is right you guys, another club is challenging us. Can you two please set aside your disagreements till after we settle the outside threat? While the greenet gave a thumbs up, Saiko gestured that she'll go along with it and that they should carry on with their discussion. Sighing with relief, Momo told them, "Thank you." To answer your earlier question, Izuku, Setsuna brings up, getting them back on track. We're a few months away from the treasure wars. Usually, direct challenges like these don't occur till the last couple of weeks. Why would everyone wait so late if they're all allowed to do so at the beginning? Izuku asked, seemingly slightly intrigued. To him, this is most likely something Nezu constructed, another calculated ploy of the madman's ever-going onslaught of testing his students. Going by numbers, you'll have more time and chances to win the good spots with little to no contest if you go early when no one has their eyes set on it yet. Not a bad way of looking at it, Saiko commented, sipping on her cold drink, but it's a greedy mindset and that's the sin that'll cause your ruin. Because it'll be putting a huge bullseye on your back that you can't get rid of and everyone is looking at. Mina added, making an exaggerated hand motion of how big the hunter's mark of a person who dares start making challenges this early will be. Putting a hand on his chin, Izuku questioned, then the issue is the attention you'll get. Still, these treasure wars seem to depend on being territorial. Like animals, wouldn't it be smarter to establish dominance by boldly taking some prime territory? Maybe in a different kind of game, but that kind of bravado doesn't work as effectively during this extended game that has already started, Setsuna told him. It's not just about obtaining the places but maintaining it while being as healthy as possible. Your comparison to the animal kingdom isn't off but misguided, Momo added, being kind enough to get out the dry board to make drawings for visual aid. Don't think of it as a land grab dash. Land grabs usually involve the dedication of weeks to months to defending it, leaving you with little time or resources to actively pursue other areas. Swiping the marker away from Momo with a teasing grin, Setsuna took back the lead. That is basically what'll happen if you claim a major area early. You're opening yourself up to be constantly challenged back to back by multiple clubs who aren't going to give you time to rest. They'll also each be adapting to your abilities and strong points as they watch more of your matches. So while you're fighting endless back-to-back games with each one getting gradually harder, there's at least several more clubs watching from the shadows, taking notes on all your wounds and capabilities. You'll be screwed with exhaustion before the treasure war even begins. When it comes to areas, you should see it as hunting deer, where you get it to reap its benefits quickly before leaving so you don't have to waste energy defending it. That's why people during this stage spend their time scouting the areas they want to get during the final week, seeing what the competitors can do, and making alliances. It's all the clubs eyeing up each other to see who will be their prey to eat, their predator to avoid, and rival to fight once the treasure war begins. I see, it's a trap for rookie clubs, stated Izuku, still feigning a bit of ignorance. It's nothing super special. I would even call it a fairly basic counterplay tactic. The actual surprising fact is that it's the norm and not the exception. Usually, this'll be the play that the well-experienced veterans or advanced-level players will be taking to outdo the rest of the pack. Similar to the level of concentration he had when he and Eri came up with the plan to take on the Killer Queens, Izuku entered a deep pondering state. In all his time spent on the girls, Izuku didn't spend much time worrying about the other students. My first encounter with the common folk here didn't show the best of their brilliance. But then again, looks could be deceiving. They may have been scouts. I bet Saiko would be vivid if she realized what she just did for me. As entertaining it'll be to see that reaction, I'll hold my tongue on it. Though it was unintentional, the girls stepping in to play all my games when they did actually saved my ass. I may not have been able to stay as covert for my goal if I had to display my style of playing so extensively. If this is the baseline of how everyone here, then it seems that I've underestimated the average intelligence level of every student here, or at least, of their leaders. I might have to start stepping my game as well. Sigh, that's going to be a drag. The first to notice Izuku out of character contemplating was the one girl in the room who can mythically see through his facade, Mina. The caramel-skinned girl noticed a change in the boy's aura as he drifted in his thoughts. At first, it was the same milquetoast level he always had, only slightly darker than when she saw him playing with Eri at the amusement park, but it was steady. Then for a bit, it seemed to have gotten a bit lighter as if he told himself a good joke, his face even softening for a more relaxed smile. What was odd was when it abruptly got a more ambiguous dark tint in it, and though outwardly he kept his fleeing cloud expression, the pinkette could sense a great tension building under the surface. Out of curiosity, Saiko had looked over, wondering why Izuku had fallen silent. Even the condescending queen looked surprised seeing him as he was, for all her irrational spite. She won't forget so easily that the boy made it this far for a reason. It may not be out of respect or for any honorable reason, but Saiko acknowledges that Izuku has an extremely deadly weapon when it can be properly used. Hey, Midoriya, Saiko called out, snapping Izuku out of his train of thought. Once she was sure his attention was her, she continued, I hope you're paying attention. Put aside the mindset you have from your scandalous street games. If you haven't noticed, a bigger game has already begun. Surprising, that last part is something I agree with you on, Izuku states, sitting back up straight on the floor. After placing his arm on a propped-up knee, he gestures to Momo to ask, so what game will the challenge match be? After retrieving her stolen marker and spotlight, Momo answered back, nothing yet, only a challenge that was sent to our mailbox has been issued. It would seem they would like to discuss the matter in person. What time? Saiko asked. They didn't specify, but they asked us to meet them at their club as soon as possible, delivering the challenge by mail but also insisting that we immediately come to them. The nerve! Saiko exclaimed, furrowing her eyebrows at the disrespect her club was shown. What club challenged us? The Tapers. The Tapers. HMPH, I don't think they existed last time. I'll still stick to my earlier statement. This could just be a club of new students who think they can make a splash by taking on a big name. But we can't count out the chance of it involving veteran students. Either way, Momo, I want you to go to them immediately to discuss the terms of this challenge. With a stunning glare, Setsuna suddenly jumped back into the conversation. Hold on, what's with the rush? Saiko turned to her greenet clubmate and told her, why do we need to wait? These arrogant pests have sent a great insult to us. Let's get the rolling so we can crush them already and move on. Because it is boneheaded and unnecessary. This isn't even a fully issued challenge match, meaning we aren't forced to accept it. Even if we do, we will gain more negatives than positives from winning. With this happening so early, the post-game grace period we'll get will be useless. Well, we're not going to let them just walk away after this insult. Regardless of our gain, we must do something about this. If not, we're letting the other clubs think we're so weak that we need to avoid matches from rookie clubs who stupidly challenge us early. We might as well tell people we'll run away from a battlefield in our favor because there are mice on the ground. That's a filthy smudge on this club's pride that I'll never let happen. I wasn't saying to do nothing, but we shouldn't just give these people what they want. They want to challenge us, fine, but we should be drawing them to fight on our terms. We don't know what they might have planned, nor do we want to show our hands to the other club this early. We're a small group with no proxy members, unable to take a match without sending a core member and displaying our capabilities. We're veterans, Setsuna. The people we should be worried about already know what our quirks are to an extent. What they don't know is how much we've improved with them since then. We don't need to do anything crazy for rookies. We already had a scar from regionals that left a stain on our image, with the boy being the second damaging stain to our name. We need to show people that we're still competent. What better way to show it than utterly stomping out people who already made a foolish mistake? By not blasting our ammo early. You can think you're a big fish all you want, but we're in the ocean. We can only do so much with our numbers and need to watch out before we end up triggering something that'll make everyone's aim land on us. You can drop your pride for a few moments for the club's well-being. What matters in the end is winning the war, not the DCK waving contest. Gee guys, stammered Momo, trying to interject between the two feuding girls. This is for the club, Saiko shouted, overshadowing Momo as her anger was directed to Setsuna. Setsuna condescendingly smirks at the lavender girl, stating, you always say that. Every time you have an attitude about something. At least I'm usually the one actively trying to make moves for the club, unlike you who laying around most of the time like a fat bee. Hey, Mina yelled at the two, what did I say about cursing? Still paying most of her attention to the game, Eri just mumbled, these broads better stop arguing so much. I swear I would turn them all into babies if I could right now. With the momentum stopped, Momo was about to come in to properly voice herself. You both have reasonable motives and I think we can make whatever we go with work. Seems fair then that we should settle this with a club vote. The air in the room was tense but through it peered a silent agreement. Both Saiko and Setsuna's stances were clear, and the options were simple. A. Display their strength and confidence to gain more respect from other clubs. Go to the Tapers to crush them. B. Conserve strength and make them respect you to keep some privacy. Make the Tapers come to the Queens. Vote. A. 1. B. 1. I want to go with Setsuna's idea, Mina says, putting in her vote. I want to jump right back into action as well, but we should at least do it on our terms. Besides, it'll increase the chances that they'll play the games we want to play. Saiko only gave a slight huff to the decision but no audible objection as she took comfort with her drink. Her clubmates' decisions are their own when it comes to voting and need to be respected. Even if it meant going against an idea she desires, if the club decided to cast it to a vote and they all voted against it, she wasn't going to go against the results. Vote. A. 1. B. 2. Stepping up to give his vote, Izuku says, I'm on Seiko's side. Vote. A. 1. B. 3. Wait, what? For a second, the world was silent as it processed what had just happened. Vote. A. 2. B. 2. Exploded the room. Momo's jaw dropped harder than her marker hit the ground when she dropped it. Setsuna's eyes literally popped out of their sockets from shock and now they were just gooey ass floating in the sky. Mina was dumbfounded as her brain had to reboot itself several different times to make sure she heard it correctly or at least to notice if there was a change in Izuku's aura she missed the first couple of times. Saiko dropped her cup and it broke on the table, staring on as if she saw a ghost. Nezu from his office set aside his paperwork as he sensed a disturbance in the force. Gentle and La Brava, who were currently roaming Seiko's house, gasped as they turned in the direction of the school. Even Eri put down her impossible game and turned around to stare in amazement. It felt like the whole world stopped for a moment. Izuku looked at them all and said, You're all overdramatic. Wiping off a drop of sweat from her head, Momo spoke with a breathy voice for she was fighting off the urge to faint. I'm sorry, it's just, I didn't see it coming. No one did, Setsuna added. We're looking at something that doesn't exist. This might as well be seeing Saiko working at a maid cafe as a server. Rubbing the back of his head, Izuku explained, oh trust me, it has nothing to do with how Saiko sold it. My thoughts are that someone in one way or another wants to mess with us. We benefit more by showing everyone that we have no fear about these provokes and will crush competition that takes us lightly. As far as I know, most of the school only see the Killer Queens as the star trio from last year. With me as a new member and Mina being back in school, we can show that the Killer Queens has grown to a high level of confidence and power. Well, chimed Saiko, sneering down to the boy she's finding to be quite hypocritical. Look who wants to punch down now. There's a crucial difference between wanting to needlessly stomp down everyone you cross paths with and strategically spreading the blood of your enemies along the edges of your territory. It's to ward people off from walking in without thinking twice if they want to possibly die, Izuku replied. So we're on the same page, Saiko said, smugly smiling. I don't think you heard the context properly when I used the words needlessly and strategic. Doesn't matter, they were off, but I can forgive them since I agree with that last part. Before the two could bicker, Mina pointed out, wait, who's the last vote? Since Momo decided to take no sides in this, because she believed both would work and didn't want to be between her friends, this left the score tied. Vote B3. Damn, I guess with Izuku here, Momo you can no longer take the centrist road, Setsuna states, smirking at her ponytail-wearing clubmate, so what'll it be? Momo's body jolted back as the same realization hit her as well. As the ink-haired girl stumbled taking a step back, there was a peculiar furred expression on her that shouted both oh no and FCK my life. It was odd because Momo never curses, not even non-verbal sense. Her lips quivered for a bit as she scrambled for words, almost blurting out a nonsensical answer before something saved her. Not yet, we do have one more vote, Izuku stated. It may not be on the official record, but I think she deserves to be counted as the rest of us. At least on the matter of tiebreakers. As the greenet jerked his thumb to the side of the room, everyone turned their head to the corner of the room. There they saw a colorful gaming chair, that's probably way more expensive than it should be, swirl around toward them. The child that sat upon her throne chivalry lowered her gaming headset, looking all the members in their eyes before coldly pronouncing her vote. Establish your dominance. Momo turned to the board she had to keep count and made a tally. Vote A4, B3. All right, do as you wish, shrugged Setsuna, laying back down, though I personally call foul. Put a stocking in it, you've bribed people before for a vote in your favor, Saiko told her, glaring as she remembered the times where she had lunch from a restaurant she despised because a certain greenette kept getting the others to vote for her choice. Setsuna went on her phone before mumbling, it's only fun when I do it. Now that the matter is settled, I'll be on my way, Momo announced to the group, giving a tiny bow to her friends before heading toward the door. Goodbye for now. I'll be back with the details of the match. Izuku jumped to his feet and called out, hold on, I'll come with. Went Momo, looking surprised. Not that I mind, but are you sure? The greenet limbered up with some T-bow, stating, definitely. Being the least knowledgeable with how the school works will come back to bite me eventually. Might as well start getting experience now while the chips aren't down. I'm sure no one will have any objections to that. Feeling like the comment was directed at her, Saiko gave a calm answer. Nope. Was considering sending you along as well. It's refreshing knowing it doesn't have to be a fight. She then proceeded to wave him away as she went back to her magazine. I'll leave him in your hands, Momo. I'll trust whatever decisions you make. Giving a courteous bow, Momo thanked her for the trust. After petting her and making sure Mina would stay in the room to watch over him, Izuku went over to Momo. After welcoming Izuku to her envoy, Momo prepared to leave, but Saiko had to give just one last comment. And Midoriya, try not to get in Momo's way. Can't have you embarrassing the club with a bad performance. Haha, funny, Izuku replied. Last I checked I was still 3-1 to the club. Saiko slapped the things off her table before stating, as far as I'm concerned, we're 1-1. Want to finish this now? Maybe No, Momo exclaimed, taking Izuku's hand and leading him out. At first, it seems like Izuku was about to object, but instead, he threw more shade at Saiko. You're lucky I have to go. As if, snapped back Saiko, any time of the week I'm ready to go. We'll see about that. On that note, Izuku was pulled out of the room. Saiko gave a strange huff that was filled with aggravation, but also a pint of disappointment. Regardless, she went back to her reading and a cold drink. Wait, shouldn't he be 3-2 to the club because I beat him as well? Mina asked. For the last few moments she was too busy pondering the math and double-checking the record. Immediately the three girls snapped their heads around for the same reaction. You what? Gah. Why does Saiko have to be such a beach? Izuku exclaimed in the hallway as the pair made their way to their destination. Though they were walking, Izuku's ponytail-wearing clubmate was writing something on a couple pieces of paper relatively fine, leaving her open to a conversation. In an attempt to calm her clubmate, Momo says, please excuse Saiko. I think I've stated before that she can be a handful. It's so annoying though. I know. Her beakiness makes her so hot at times I wanna FCK her. I can aggravate what? Izuku quickly cleared his throat before swiftly saying, I was just voicing my grievances with her attitude. Silence befell Momo as her eyes stayed on Izuku. My apologies, Momo finally said. She turned back to her work, fixing a mistake that was made from the whiplash she experienced. Must have misheard you. I can agree that Saiko's attitude has been a long-running issue for everyone, especially for the club despite her efforts to try to make her actions be for the benefit. It's why I can't express how thankful I am that Mina is back. Aside from the trust Saiko has in me, Mina is a lot better at getting everyone to mellow out when they fight. She's a godsend. Interesting that even you need a superhero. In this case, it's a bubblegum hero glazed with caramel, commented Izuku, chuckling a bit at his wordplay. I wouldn't go as far to say I think Mina like she's a superhero, but of course I admire people for different things. Everyone does. I know Saiko admires Principal Nezu's playing skills. She dreams of having a chance to play him. Are you kidding? Talk about irony. Quite. Then there's Mina. She said her big inspiration is from her parents. If you ever want to derail a conversation with her, just mention a story about children watching their parents cook. What Mina will invoke, you'll have to possess the same commit one does when going to a movie. PFFFT, I'll keep it in mind. Maybe I can use it to trip her up during a game so she can stop reading me so hard. That girl is quite the genius. Once again, Momo stopped working to look back at Izuku with a strange look like he was a madman. What? Izuku asked, ignorant to the reason for her actions. Genius you say, said Momo, getting the record straighter like an IRS agent making sure you paid your taxes. We're talking about the same Mina, correct? The one from our club. The greenette raised an eyebrow as he answered, yes. Why? Nothing. It's nice to hear you praise Mina like that. Often I'm used to you and Seiko's hurling insults and passive-aggressive remark, replied Momo, mumbling silently to herself. It was just an assertion I've never heard before. What's this about only hearing mean comments from me? Chuckled Izuku. Come on, Ponytail, I frequency compliment you. I say so many nice things about you that you're left red-faced most of the time and stammering. That's because. Momo's voice got a bit quieter. Your words are a bit too flattering to so casually say. It's only what I think. A refined lady like yourself deserves to be celebrated for all your achievements. I bet there's 1,000 more I'm shamefully missing. A sigh rang out in the air from the ink-haired girl. If only I truly match up to those expectations. Is there any reason you wouldn't? I've been a bit of disappointment to everyone. From my parents to my clubmates, and even my responsibilities with my recent performance in games. Are you talking about your loss to me? If that's it, then don't be too hard on yourself. I did mess with your head a little because I couldn't. Not just that match. Honestly, it wouldn't have bothered me as much if it weren't for last year. What happened then? It was my loss that cost us going to nationals. Wait, this doesn't sound right. In the round you all lost, you went first. Correct, it was during the finals of our bracket that it happened. When I lost, Saiko tried to boost our spirits by going next against their leader but lost as well by a slim margin. For regionals, they have 2 brackets so 2 teams can enter into nationals. Due to an accident that occurred after the initial event, one of the teams that won their bracket couldn't go to nationals. I don't know why, but they wanted to keep the talks about the entire situation low. They hosted a more private match between the 2 teams who lost in the finals of their bracket, which was between us and one other team, to see who will be the silent replacement. That explains why. Honestly, I assumed the original winning team might have been caught cheating, so they gave the spot to the team that would have won. How did this secret match go? It was a lot better than our final round match. Though Setsuna lost the first round, Saiko won the second round against the leader, leaving me with their second in command. That match was close as well, but then I choked and lost us the match. I'm sorry to hear. That sucks. I can understand how frustrating that can feel to be so close but have it slip out your hand. That loss was disheartening, but the after effect was truly devastating. That was actually the start of Saiko and Setsuna constantly arguing. Don't misunderstand, they butted heads before, but it was mostly just minor bickering over differences. We all still got along relatively nicely. After regionals, it started becoming much more than that. Setsuna got mad at Saiko for the turn order, believing it was because they followed her plan which mismatched them with opponents with playstyles they wouldn't be good against. Saiko then blamed Setsuna, saying that they only lost the match, not because of her plan but because Setsuna failed to win her game. According to Saiko, she felt like it would be too risky to go head-to-head with the team we faced and aimed to end quickly with a 2-0 victory. She argued that if Setsuna had won her match, we would have made it to nationals with her victory, and I wouldn't have needed to play as a last resort. They still haven't resolved the issue since neither thinks they're wrong. Surprised none of them are blaming you. Not that they should be blaming anyone, but still, you would think they might be looking at the person who lost the match. Similar thoughts came to me as well. I think they already knew I felt bad enough about losing it that they didn't want to make me feel worse about myself by pointing the finger at me. So instead, they've taken out their frustrations on each other for my sake. It's something I both respect them for but grating because I still feel guilty from them fighting. Can't be too ungrateful though, regardless of my guilt. What they did still gave me time to mostly recover from the loss. Can't believe the princess would show that much restraint for losing an event that big. I imagine she'll immediately bring out the megaphone and will never let you live it down. Joked Izuku. Momo looked back at Izuku with a pout before stating, Saiko isn't cruel-hearted. On my second day here, I watch her make over a doesn't mend her boot. She has good traits, they're just buried under all her beachery. Momo would sigh again, yes. Rubbing his chin, Izuku muttered, can't lie, it does put an expensive price tag on that ass. But goddamn does she pitch the sale so well it might be worth the check. What? Quickly snapping the conversation back on track, Izuku says, oh, I was just speaking on how it must be taxing to spend so much time with her. Considering how you know her the longest and all. It's all about patience. It may be hard to believe and I won't oblige anyone to go along with it if they want to, which is why I won't patronize you about your choice of words toward her. I do request you to please spare some of your tolerance at times for Saiko, she just needs time. Back in the clubroom, things were silent since the club's main organizer and the most controversial member had left. Mina was whispering something into Seiko's ear before jerking her head in the direction of their seaweed hair clubmate. At first, a hesitant look befell Saiko, prompting Mina to nudge the strategist's arm to invigorate her to go through with what's on her mind. After much internal deliberation, Saiko finally went to speak. Hey Setsu. I'm going to go get another drink, interrupted Setsuna, immediately getting up and walking out the room. Y'all want anything? Sai, Mina, Iri. No, alright then, I'll be back. Then she was gone before anyone got another word in. Mina looked disappointed while Saiko simply replied to her dark-skinned friend, what? I tried. Not much happened afterward, not even Setsuna's return. The only one who was actively doing something was Uri, grinding out those victories for a great win streak. When she had enough of it, she swapped over to a more puzzle adventure-based game. Her process was relatively fast for her first run until she hit a bump. Off of pure instinct, she turned around and called out for her sibling. Big broth, she was halfway through the world when she saw Izuku wasn't behind her and remembered that he had left. Oh right. What's wrong, Uri? Mina asked, going over to attend to her. It's nothing. Oh come on, I can help. No, please. With a cherry on top and sprinkles. That sounds disgusting. No. I'll take you to this spaceship ride right outside this store I know. It'll take you out of this world. As if I'll. Are you serious? The pinkette nodded her head. You're not lying to me, this ride will take me to space. Mina gave an even more assuring head nod. So help me, you better not be pulling my leg. I would never. Fine, I just need help with this word. I don't know what it means. Oh, I remember being your age. I used to run to my parents and older siblings all the time whenever I encountered a word I didn't know. Always dreamed of doing the same when I grew up, Mina exclaimed before plopping herself down next to Uri. She leaned forward toward the screen to get a look at what's happening. Alright then, let's see the word you need help with, can't be that complicated. Saiko, we need your help. From her peaceful reading, Saiko would put down her magazine to see both Mina and Uri standing next to her. Come again, was the calm response the lavender girl gave them. What does purity mean? Mina asked, feeling slightly ashamed at her immediate failure. There wasn't any immediate response as Saiko searched her entire dictionary of words to understand what was just said to her. What? Purity. We must purity the grid to create the spiral of truth to get the drill that'll pierce the heavens. Mina, I don't ever want to accuse anyone in our club of doing drugs, but no, it was a riddle in the game. They're saying to purity something. Purity. Yes, purity. Is that even a word? It must be if they're using it in the game. Just look, stated Mina, combining her and Uri's effort to pull Saiko over to the setup. The pompous girl didn't put much effort in resisting, submitting herself to the two sweethearts' request. With a sigh, she says, fine. Be careful how you haul me over, I'm not a toy. My sleeves will get stretch marks. After seating herself with perfect posture, Saiko took a look at the screen in front of her. It took only a second for her to recall the undeniable truth about the two girls who trawled her into their mess. It's pirouette, not purity, exclaimed Saiko, softly facepalming herself. She could feel a migraine coming, as if she wasn't in enough pain from her cheek. It means to spin, specifically on one leg. Oh thanks, Saiko, cheered Mina. Uri only sat back down before continuing to play, as if she would thank a bourgeois swine. Saiko rose to her feet, telling them, I don't mind helping but please try to at least get the pronunciation of the word right. Also, you have phones to look up such things. Yeah, but that'll ruin the fun, replied Mina, reclaiming her position next to Uri. Rolling her eyes, Saiko was about to go back to her business but something compelled her to look back. Seeing the two girls sitting closely together playing a game with each other caused her mind to drift. A soft droplet of joy from a pastime slithering its way through Seiko's system, treading its way to her core and releasing a tiny glitter of fuzzy warmth. When she heard the pair mumbling about the next clue they were confronted with a similar obtuse method of solving it like their last escapade, Saiko stepped in. Do you girls, need me to stay around? Like I'll fall for that one, Eri stated, not looking away from her screen. This is how you greedy industrialists get started. Watch the common people's practices before finding a way to exploit it. You have enough labor slaves already, let us have this one before you corporate it up. Suo, was that a no? Yes, I'll never allow you to accompany my gaming session in a million years, you spawn of class oppression incarnate. Stepping in, Mina mumbled, now we need to create the perfect linear kinematics for torque. That way we can get the angular acceleration we want to power the drill, since the drill functions depend heavily on vector quantity. What kind of game is this? But sometimes temporary peace is needed, quickly corrected Eri, so you may stay in exchange for your privileged unequal knowledge. Taking her position on the other side of Eri, Saiko silently wished that Eri would sit on her lap, but she knew better than to risk asking. The lavender girl waited till after she helped out solving another hint before going for a softer request. "See, can I pet you?" "No," immediately answered Eri, shutting that down. "That privilege is for Izuku and Izuku alone. But for your cooperation, I shall periodically permit you for short-time pats on my head." "How long?" "I'll tell you when to stop." Godary only allowed Saiko a ration 2 pats before commanding her to stop. Surprisingly, that was enough for Saiko to enjoy her time there, with the edges of lips curling to a smile. Momo and Izuku have walked for quite a while in mostly soft passive talk. It wasn't until Momo felt they were close to their destination did she create a tone shift. Her facial expressions became sterner, and even her voice sounded serious. She turned to Izuku and requested, "We're almost there, Izuku. I have a request I want you to comply with." Though he was slightly taken off guard from her tone shift, Izuku shrugged, saying, "Sure, whatever you need. When we get there, can you please not do that thing you usually do to me?" "What do you mean?" "All the compliments, comments, the things you purposely say to make me blush. My clubmates are really depending on me for this. It's why I'm usually sent for negotiating and debating for the club. I don't want to seem rude, but it would be a bad look for us if they see a new member like you casually embarrassing me in front of others during the meeting. I don't mind if you do it after, but for now can you allow me to confidently focus on my duty? After costing us the chance to go to nationals, the least I can do is fulfill the responsibilities my teammate trusts me with to the best of my abilities." Izuku was stricken silent from her words. Never seen this side before. Even in the video I saw of her match, she always seemed a bit shaken from being in the crowd. "Interesting, I like people who have some bite in them." Seeking a smile, the boy told her, "No problem, Momo, I'll hold my tongue. Would love to see you at work in peak condition anyways." Momo's face softens a bit with a smile, saying, "Thank you. Don't worry, in your brave charge I'll bring up the rear guard as your faithful servant, performing the valorous duty of protecting your elegant royal ass." Furred was an understatement to how Momo felt. Accompanied by a squeamish heap, her face blazed red. After she covered her luscious backside with her hands, her hips moved on their own, jerking forward. With the priceless expression of her embarrassment, Momo stammered, Pardon." Quickly catching on to how the modest polymath interpreted his statement, Izuku continued, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that, but while we're on the subject." "No," screeched Momo, squirming from how humiliated she felt. "What?" Izuku said, smirking as he found her reactions adorably entertaining. "You shouldn't be ashamed of it. Be proud, you got a killer ass, one fit for a queen such as yourself." Momo's Furred meter reached a boiling point that could melt diamonds, speed blitzing Izuku before he could react and pounding away at his cest with her fist. Izuku was sturdier than he may appear, and so Momo's frail hand's assault on him did as much damage as a pillow being used to smack him. "You big jerk, you promised you wouldn't," whined Momo as she continued to thump Izuku's cest. Chuckling Izuku at Momo's furious attitude, he playfully tries to defend himself by blocking her strikes. He explained, "Sorry, Ponytail, but I didn't say anything about teasing you before the meeting. Not that I was lying about you having the goods deserving to be in a club called the Killer Queens. Wouldn't be surprised if you girls accidentally cause a boy with a weak heart to faint." "Oh my god, you're idiot. The pair's tussling stopped when he heard a more coy voice approach them. "Ain't this a sight to behold?" Momo immediately stopped to turn to whoever was speaking. Her eyes widened as she muttered, "Jiru." A violet-haired girl had appeared in front of them. She was twirling one of her long earlobes with a finger with a smile. Her triangular eyes had set themselves onto Izuku, her onyx eyes giving a piercing glare to the greenet, with a dubious intent hidden behind them. They then drew over to the person she did recognize. A smirk curled onto her face as she greeted Momo. "How you holding up? It's been a while. I see you've gotten a new friend. An interesting one for sure." Izuku watched as a petite girl walked over and hugged the taller, bustier girl like old friends greeting each other. The greenet was kind enough to give them time to catch up before Momo finally introduced him to her little friend. "This is Jiru. She has been a good friend of mine since I first came to this school." The punk rocker gave a friendly wave as she greeted Izuku. "Hey, so you're the infamous new member. In all honesty, I expected you to look more like a femboy if you got past Seiko's pesky rules about new members." Maybe she finally loosened up. She then leaned in closer to whisper something that only Izuku caught. "Or you're packing something she wants to test drive." The emerald greenet gave a similarly kind greeting gesture before chuckling. "Haha, no, she hates my guts with a burning passion. I'm walking along eggshells to make sure I don't give her the opportunity to chuck me to the streets. It is nice to meet another friend of Momo's who doesn't carry a boatload of spite toward me. We've both been so busy with our clubs and everything that we haven't been able to hang out recently," Momo explained, turning to her friend. "Which reminds me, why are you here?" Jiru smirked, stating, "You know why. I'm here to listen in on your little meeting. Clubs are sending scouts already." "How? We just got this challenge recently. Seems like someone leaked the information." It hasn't become widespread thought, so you can take a breather for now. I will warn you though, it seems to me that things are moving a lot faster this time around. You better prepare yourself." Surprised at the news, Momo shook off the feeling and gave an assertive but thankful nod to her friend. "Thank you for the valuable information." The raven-haired girl turned away from the pair before walking off, saying, "Don't mention it. We may be on different teams, but that doesn't mean there needs to be any hospitality between us. Good luck in your meeting. By the way, you won't be able to see me, so I'll let you know now that I'm rooting for you." Though it was short, that small interaction gave Momo the confidence boost she needed for the upcoming events. As the door creaked open, a tense silence befalls a room previously filled with lively chat. Entering into the room was a staid-looking Momo, followed behind by Izuku, who was holding the papers and equipment Momo had taken with her when they left the clubroom. Unlike their own, the clubroom of the Tapers wasn't as home-renovated as the Queen's were. It looked like the members here barely touched the room, only moving in tables and chairs they might have looted off of the classrooms in the school. The members seemed to have brought in things to help make being there comfortable, such as coolers, a TV set, and a game system. It reminded Izuku that he had to somehow convince Saiko to put a TV in the Killer Queen's clubhouse so he could watch her favorite shows there. As the pair walked toward the seats in the middle that were open and obviously meant for them, Izuku took a quick scan in the room of all the members. With two exceptions, no one in the room seemed to stick out to him, just a bunch of boys. The only interesting thing was that he noticed quite a few familiar faces that were among the 30 boys that had cornered him on his second day. Saiko was right after all, a bigger game was already being played. I did find it weird that in a top-class school based around intelligence that I would face such a barbaric approach from a big group of students so soon after arrival, pondered Izuku. During his observation, it would seem that none of these guys had forgotten his face as well. With how secretive Saiko is about the club's business, there shouldn't have been much information out about me that could have spawned that amount of prejudice before any one of them even properly saw me in class. No wonder Saiko was so aggressive with stomping out my insubordination herself. She probably anticipated that the other clubs had hidden scouts all over. Once the invading pair were seated in front of a table, a boy from the group stepped out. He was tall and pretty lean with blacker hair than Momo. His hair was medium level and spiked downward, and his straight-toothed smile on his plain face just didn't seem right. As he approached, he gave a casual greeting. "Why, if it isn't Yaoyorozu, good to see you're doing well." The boy's almond-shaped eyes shifted its attention over to Izuku. "And you brought along the infamous new student I've been hearing about." "Thanks, now I don't need to look around campus to see him for myself. This may be late, but welcome to our school. I'm Hanta Siro, club president of the Tapers. You can just call me Siro, people found it the simplest to say and remember." "Good to you again as well, Siro," Momo told him, giving a polite greeting bow. She then flashed her eyes over to Izuku. Remembering what they talked about, Izuku did the same kind of greeting and said, "Nice to meet you, Siro. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Thank you for the welcoming." "If you don't mind, I would like to get right to business," stated Momo. The tone in her voice was similar to how she talked before in the hallway. She held out a hand toward Izuku with an open palm, as signaled. The greenet went through the pile of paper she was carrying to get out the folder he was earlier instructed to bring out first and placed it in her hand. As Momo looked through the file, she continued, "About the details of the game that should be our challenge match. I've already taken the liberty of making a proposal for rules and what we'll be betting. Izuku, I need the sheet for what we'll be offering." "Right, sorry for the wait," Izuku nodded, taking out the sheet and giving it to her. His docile nature and compliance to Momo's requests without even a word in defiance threw even Siro off. Exactly as expected, having me be in open rebellion against the Queen so soon after infamously getting in would make them look like the sick man of clubs unless they managed to get me under control quickly. That's probably why Saiko didn't even attempt to push that I must resign from the Killer Queens during the whole club president fiasco. She didn't want me gone, just silence, so it looked like they tamed the rowdy dog. If I had been kicked out of the club and joined another one, then I would have a chance to talk about all sorts of things to their competitors. Even if she felt like I didn't deserve it, having someone that can get into the Queens by tricking 3 of the core members at once go to a competing club would be more humiliating to them in the long run. It was this line of thinking that led him and Momo to come up with a scheme. If Izuku didn't leave the Killer Queens, all the other clubs would still be curious to see the talent of the man who challenged the Queens so directly. So, why not give them an underwhelming first showing? For the sake of taking some attention away from me, for both the club and my personal life, I'll dutifully serve Momo on our little diplomatic mission like a good servant. When they see me acting so compliant after all the rumors of my rebellious deeds, they'll undoubtedly think the Queens pacified me, indicating that all the steam I was blowing up before was no match for them, and in turn, having them underestimate my capabilities, my favored position. "Something the matter?" questioned Momo, seeing Siro's dumbfounded expression. The jet black-haired boy slowly responded, "No, sorry, I just expected more of a show from your newest member. Heard he caused quite a bit of ruckus for you guys." Still keeping her calm, stern demeanor, Momo gestured to Izuku before stating, maybe at first, but we ironed out any issues we had with each other. We wouldn't want it to be a distraction to us. Izuku slowly nodded, keeping his eyes low like he was at a parent-teacher conference. The boy can feel the eyes falling on him, judging his passive display. Despite this, Izuku was internally laughing at them. Hey, look down on me all you want, I don't care. When it's time to play, you'll be crushed. I'm playing duty for now, but I'm no simple servant. I'll proudly take my position as the queen's personal knight. That's enough derailment, let's return to the proposal, Momo states, sliding the paper over for the taper's president to read. I'm sure you'll find it fair. While Shiro was preoccupied, Izuku could still feel eyes glaring at him, but he couldn't track where. He knew Jiru was one of them but not the rest. They must be hidden in the crowd or are spying on them via another method. When the plain-faced leader put down the proposal, he commented, "Is this a joke?" "No, humor at this moment would be inappropriate," Momo replied. She motioned to the paper. "We're completely serious about everything we jotted down. Everything would be unsatisfying for us, from the game we'll be playing to the arrangements and even spoils of victory. It just isn't worth it for us." "I disagree. Maybe you don't find them favorable because you want to be greedy with the conditions. So what? You were invited here to discuss these things. I'm not accepting a prepared proposal. If you pitch some of this, you may convince me to agree to a few things on here." "There's a misunderstanding here. You challenged us," Momo declared, looking at Shiro straight on. "Doing so in such a disrespectful manner, do you think we'll just forget about that and negotiate as if we are equals in any capacity?" "No, you'll be unconditionally playing by our rules. Any discussion that'll be had here today will be me explaining the details of the proposal to avoid any misinterpretation." Her onyx eyes glared at the club president in front of her. He seemed aggravated about not moving an inch before stating, "If you object to this, then I'll have to take action to get you to comply." Shiro stared back at Momo, pondering something in his mind. He then looked to the side where some of the tapers were sitting down and called out, "Suburaba." "Right," called out a voice in the back. While the entire meeting was happening, one boy in particular never stopped playing games. The tapers' leader turned back to Momo and said, "We'll take you up on that offer. I'll find it fitting that I should have my second-in-command fight the Killer Queen's second-in-command. If you win, we'll wholeheartedly accept this proposal of yours, but I expect full compliance to our demands when we win." With a nod, Momo agreed to the terms. "Perfect. How you don't mind, but since this game was challenged by you, we'll be picking the game we'll play," Shiro says, getting up from his seat and walking away. "She's all yours." "All right," shouted a boy with short brown hair. He slammed the table with his hands as he sat down. He sported a CCKY smirk as he looked up at Momo with his big pupil eyes. "Are you ready?" Momo looked at Izuku, motioning for him to depart from the table so it was only her and her opponent. As the greenet got up, he shared a quick word of encouragement to Mom before taking position behind her. "Let's play VU MMA," declared Suburaba. "You ever played it before? It's similar to playing a video game." Respectfully, Momo answered, "No, I don't play video games. Seems like I got a noob on my hands. Didn't expect that," chuckled the brown-haired boy. Izuku squinted his eyes as he thought, "Liar, they probably expected this and are trying to have her play a game in a style she's not familiar with." With the wide variety a game could be played, people adopt different styles of playing them. The most respected forms are games like chess that truly show off the traditional sense of intelligence most people think of, but playing games through video games has been a growing style for many common folks. In a formal place like this, you'll be hard-pressed to find someone who actively trains themselves in the method of video games. Suburaba then states, "The rules are simple. Game virtual underground mixed martial arts running off the Avatar deployment system, a system only implemented in a few schools for testing. The setting is similar to the name, in an underground mixed martial arts arena where the rules are a lot more lax for more brutal fighting. Both players will be controlling a blank avatar whose body they could augment to get the stats they want for their desired playstyle. The player will then select what ability their cheat will grant for them from a variety of options. They'll be based on their capabilities with their quirk. Victory is achieved by the knockout of the other's avatar." "That should be a simple enough explanation, right?" Suburaba said, stretching his arms to prepare for the match. He had option to let them control their avatar mentally. You should have no problem picking up on the rest." The elegant Momo had her eyes closed for a moment, digesting the explanation given and surfing her mind for other information. Once she opened them, she asked, "Shall we begin?" Her brown-haired opponent nodded. Game set. In front of the two of them, a hologram screen appeared for both players. There, the two of them customized their avatars. While Izuku watched on, he thought, not only is she playing in a style she's not used to, there's no doubt the guy knows a lot of the tech this game has that Momo won't know about or will be unable to use during her first time timing. Why would Momo put herself in a disadvantageous position so willingly? When the two were finished, the screens disappeared, and a virtual field of the fighting arena appeared between the two. It was a standard arena field with sand serving as the foundation. A virtual crowd was also created to serve as audience members. Their avatar was quickly coded onto both entrances of the arena. Izuku was amazed at how accurate the avatars were to their controllers. His well-trained eyes could barely see any disparities that would make this not a one-to-one visualization. The only difference was their attire. The avatars were dressed in clothing more appropriate for a fight compared to their school uniforms. The experience Tsuburaba had showed in his avatar, from a glance Izuku could tell it was optimized in complete coordination to Tsuburaba's playstyle. Not a single aspect of the customization was wasted. For the short bit of time Izuku had to study the customization process from over Momo's shoulder, which he noticed she went extra slow to give her clubmate a chance to see this fairly new system. He spotted the many design choices most might overlook but can play an integral role in this game. This guy Siro sent out, he knew how integral this system can be utilized because he set them all to fit the specific style he was aiming for. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, known for being one of the deadliest martial arts styles, which is why many people think of it as the best martial art. Its recreation from the original for sport didn't turn it into a showman's craft. It'll certainly be a tough match. Unease sat with Izuku because of his clubmate's choice for this battle. A completely standard build. While it was understandable why Momo would go for such a setup, the decision wouldn't give many benefits for the machine. In this scenario, it's only a step above choosing a style Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu completely counter. In these types of games, people have a natural drive to balance out every aspect when in truth it isn't necessary. In many cases it may even be counterproductive. While experts learn all the fundamentals, they usually specialize in a specific aspect to advance themselves ahead of the rest, even at the cost of other basics. Against such force, an average approach would get slaughtered. Izuku would assume that Momo planned to make up the skill difference through the use of her quirks, but with this matchup, whatever cheat she would get could only get her on the level of having an advanced style. Her fight will be with someone whose base is already advanced along with the cheat. These are odds I'm used to facing, Izuku thought after assessing the situation. Being quirkless in this world has brought a lot of disadvantages that Izuku had to adapt to surviving the way he did. Adversity isn't anything new. The only concern was that it wasn't him at the controls, someone else is operating the steering wheel on this uphill road, and Izuku wasn't used to being in the backseat for these types of journeys. There was an earlier attempt from Izuku to be the spearhead of this operation, but it was shot down. Are you sure about this, Momo? I'm all for what you're trying to do, but I don't mind throwing my hat into the ring for this one. Might help show more control, suggested Izuku as they crafted their game plan for entering the taper's room. Momo shook her head. No, this is something I need to do. Their conversation echoed in Izuku's mind. He can still remember his ponytail clubmate's face looking at him. Haven't seen her eyes that fierce since our game. Since my personal stakes are low, I don't mind yielding to her request. Especially since she had that charming expression. The Emerald Gamer will have to leave this to Momo. That doesn't mean he wasn't scheming up any contingency plans. He didn't need complete trust in his clubmate to go along with it. For now, he'll watch idly like a predator, waiting for his opportune moment. You better be ready, because I'm going all in when the ref calls it, Tsuburaba announced, raring to go. Still keeping her composed posture, Momo quipped back, you're not even going to give a first-timer a chance to check her controls. Quite impolite, don't you think? The controls are simple, we're doing it with our minds anyways. You'll get used to it real quick, the bug-eyed player replied. TCH, no surprise they're being relentless. When actual stakes are on the line, people will do whatever they can to increase their chance of victory, or lower their opponents. Even simple things like a button check need to be negotiated beforehand to ensure it'll happen. It was a bad move to say outright that she has never done this before. Now they know for sure you don't know a lot of the mechanics. They're going to exploit that now, thought Izuku. He dipped his supposed submitted voice in some assertiveness when she said, that's willfully cruel. You can spare a few seconds for her, not like it'll matter. Siro then spoke up from his seat, this ain't a playground. There is no obligation to spare you guys anything here. Adding on to that statement, Tsuburaba stated, yeah, we're trying to have fun here. We're not going to do anything just because. This was followed by a wave of the other tapers throwing in their comments of wanting their visitor to shut up and play. There it is. Izuku thought he had to hold back the smile that was creeping on his face to not break character. They're all set to be incentivized if we raise something in the bet. Your bargaining skills should be adequate, Momo, because if I'm going to keep on with our little act then I can only set up this exchange. Much to the Greenet's surprise, before he could speak another word Momo spoke up, that's fine. The FCK. Izuku internally shouted, his body tensed up, what are you thinking? Don't worry, I can work with these conditions, Momo told Izuku. Feeling her clubmate's hidden frustration, she had turned around. Facing front again, she continued, we can begin whenever you want. Tsuburaba was quick to respond, all right, let's get started already. You better know what you're doing to give up on what I was trying to get you, Izuku thought. It took a bit before he found himself grinding his teeth. A bad habit he hasn't done in a long while. This is stressing me out. How petty. This is why I prefer being the driving force, makes things a lot easier. After a few deep breaths, Izuku calms himself to stop his habit. Let's watch for now. None of this matters to me except keeping the school's awareness to me at a minimum. It was just in time for the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start. Just as promised, Tsuburaba started the match fist blazing. Thankfully, Momo was smart enough to keep her distance, staying out of range to any of Tsuburaba's attempts for a grapple. While her avatar sustained some hits from striking, None of it was heavy for concern. Izuku was quite surprised at how light on its feet Momo's avatar was. If she kept it up, she could buy herself enough time to get used to the controls. It'll be a start. Suburaba taunted them. His avatar hasn't taken a bit of damage yet. Running already. Go ahead, this arena is only so big. You can at least throw a punch. Momo didn't respond, continuing with her strategy. There were a few close calls where it looked like Momo attempted to strike but instead got countered with Suburaba's own. The hits were strong but Momo never allowed a chance for a combo to get off. Not yet. He has a few openings but I can't attack yet, Momo thought. She was working up a lot of concentration to maintain the distance her avatar was at. A misstep could spell the end of this match. Izuku put a hand on his chin, rubbing as he pondered. This ain't bad. She's getting Suburaba to drain a lot of his avatar's stamina from the relentless attacks. Tiring him out is a solid move, something I'll even do, but it would be supplemented with something else. If you only dodge, they're going to catch on soon. Your true intentions should be the quiet part, the things you say out loud as the distraction. His examination was spot on. After a few more seconds of low-contact battling, Suburaba suddenly stopped moving. I didn't think you'll be this scared, Sitless, the bug-eyed gamer stated, leaving his avatar wide open. It's a snoozefest if you only run away. If it'll spice things up, I won't mind letting you take a free hit. Both Izuku and Momo shared a bewildered look at this. Don't be shy, build your confidence a bit, Suburaba says, stepping forward with his avatar. He fully intends on approaching without a guard. Neither of them was falling for this, it was obviously a trap. The question is how. Izuku immediately concluded, must be his cheat. One that works best on defense if he has to bait someone to use in this scenario. I saw his face when Momo kept denying him a chance to get in a combo. He's no patient type. Even for an expert like himself, the Emerald Greenet knew this was one of the deadliest stages of a game. Discovering the opponent's cheat. With how unpredictable Quirks can be and the vast amount of cheats that can be created from them, one should never underestimate the advantages that can turn the tides. A quirkless people like Izuku who had to win many games without any cheats available knew this rule of nature well. While he has his interesting take on the Killer Queens, there was enough respect for their intelligence. Momo won't fall for that trap, right? But she'll need to discover what his cheat is somehow. You gotta drag it out safely so you know how to counter it. He was right about Momo not taking the bait. She stayed her distance instead of rushing in. But this wasn't a careful approach, it was passivity. It didn't look like Momo was preparing to do anything. Don't just stand there. It doesn't have to be hyper-aggressive, but you should always be keeping the gears moving. Sit, this is annoying to do since I can't even openly advise her. With a smug grin, Subaru taunted, don't be shy. I promise to not raise a finger. This supportive claim only confirmed Momo's choice to not engage. Instead, she had her avatar back up. Along the way, she kept an active guard, gradually moving her arms and legs. Still observing from the side, Izuku thought, it was a good opportunity lost to find out his quirk now. It'll give you less time to think about ways to get around it once he begins using it more seriously. Oh well, someone with a lack of patience like him will quickly lose his cool since his plan isn't working. She can. Wait. Izuku immediately sensed something was wrong. Suburaba has yet to be visually disturbed by Momo not taking his taunt. No eye twitches, no grunts, not even an impatient movement. He had clear genuine frustration when Momo kept dodging his attacks, but not here. This seemingly complete puzzle has a part that doesn't sit right. If Izuku was playing this himself or had a more active role, he wouldn't recognize it much earlier, but his focus on Momo kept his mind partly distracted. But now that he got the tail end sent, he can quickly trail it to the source in the nick of time. It never made sense why he'd wait in the first place. Even if Momo was running, I'm sure he had enough experience in this game to counter such a simple tactic. Why would he be so calm about having to wait if he's impatient unless he wanted to wait? No. Oh crap, it's not waiting. He was going to break character for a moment, but Izuku felt like it was necessary. Consequences be damned. It'll be much easier, for him, to find a way out of it afterward anyways than for Momo to go on without this information. He blurts out, Momo. He's baiting you away, not in, he wants to catch his breath. For a split moment, Momo looked back, surprised by the revelation. It wasn't overtly obvious, but Izuku concluded that there must be an exhaustion gauge that runs alongside the stamina bar to prevent people from mindlessly spamming strong attacks in quick succession. Similar to humans, we have the energy or stamina to do a lot. It's how we're about to have 8-hour workdays with many people still doing other activities on top of that. But that's only possible because we take breaks between and during all of them. If we tried to do them all without a second to at least stand idly, we'd faint from exhaustion. Suburaba from the start was throwing out attack after attack trying to get in to deal heavy damage. His stamina showed it took a toll on him to use up that much so quickly. He'll need a moment before he can start again. A small frown appeared on Suburaba's face as he grumbled, that ruins the fun a bit, no matter. Suburaba's avatar dashed forward to strike while Momo was mentally still staggered by the news. At first, it looked like a repeat of before, but quickly Suburaba had switched up his tactics to striking with long-range attacks. The extra focus increased the effectiveness of each hit that landed even if it was just a graze. While the match itself seemed to be heating up, Ciro's eyes were dead set on Izuku. Their mutt had some fangs after all. Zero thought, now intrigued not because of Izuku's deduction but the speed. I know what gave it away, the avatar's panting. The devs put it in as a subtle way to show when someone is getting exhausted, something most beginners would overlook, especially if they didn't know the game would keep track of such a thing. But Tsuburaba needed about 25 seconds for a full recovery. But this guy recognized what he was doing at the count of 5. The black-haired leader cracked a smile. Did he notice the slight change of breathing or came to this conclusion quickly through another means? It was smart, he told his clubmate as soon as he did, but it won't be enough. Tsuburaba got back about enough to finish this. Blow to blow, Tsuburaba pressed Momo back. This was where Tsuburaba's other plan came into play. Before Momo knew it, her avatar's back was against the wall. Her retreat had made it easier to corner her where she can no longer dabble within his attack range. Shit, he's in range to grab her, Izuku thought. He knew this wasn't good. Zero's smile grew. She can't run away anymore. Looks like we're nearing the end of this. With the range finally closed, Tsuburaba pushed his avatar forward for a grapple to end the match, declaring, "We've all grown tired of this snoozefest." Izuku's eyes sharpened as he began to step back. "I'll have to step in now." If I remembered, they left. The Greenit's shenanigans were stopped suddenly when he felt someone grab him. For a moment he thought one of the tapers had grabbed him, but he was surprised to see that it was Momo's hand keeping him there. Her grip was firm and didn't let go. The timing said it all. She didn't want him to move a muscle. "Yes, this has gotten tedious," Momo stated, her eyes looking much fiercer than they were before. Before Tsuburaba's avatar could lay his hand on her, Momo's own knocked its hand away with the swipe of an elbow. "Let's start to end this." The emerald eyes of the casuist mastermind widened. That elegant move she just pulled off. Surge electricity went through his brain just from witnessing it. He recognized the movement. Most importantly, if Momo was pulling off that move, it means she's familiar with the controls now. Tsuburaba didn't stop with his assault after his grab was parried. Though a bit staggered, he still managed to throw out a hard strike with his other hand. With the same fluid movement that'll make dancers jealous, Momo used her avatar's forearms to attack near his wrist, waving it away as well. With both his arms knocked away, it left Tsuburaba wide open for Momo to land an open palm strike on his chest, staggering him back. Clutching his controller, Tsuburaba growled, "Lucky shot, let's see you do that again." Without giving himself a second for evaluation, he rushed back into a patiently waiting Momo. He exhausted his arsenal, from kicks to punches, and even grapples. Each kick was parried or dodged, every punch was followed up with a counter, and all grapples were denied before they could begin. The frustration built up in Tsuburaba to the point where he abandoned anything formal, and tried to slam his avatar's body into hers to shove her to the wall. He wasn't expecting her to slip out of the way and chopping his throat with her entire forearm, making his avatar hacking over into a coughing fit. "Damn it," Tsuburaba exclaimed, trying to get his avatar to recover. Zero spoke out to him, "Calm down and think." "She's using Silat," concluded Izuku, after that display. He was sure of it. That's a martial art similar to Muay Thai in using their elbows and knees to fight through a much softer style. Often they use their forearms and open palms for combat, allowing them a chance to control how much harm they do to their opponent. While he was impressed that Momo decided to use a lesser-known martial art and combine it with the speed she gave her avatar, he was curious as to why she wasn't taking advantage of the situation. Tsuburaba's avatar is wide open while recovering from the damage done to his throat, yet Momo kept to her stance. Izuku relaxed, assuring Momo that he wasn't going to move so she could let his hand go and focus on her match. He'll just stand back and watch. If she wants to handle this so much, then so be it. Although he was aggravated, Tsuburaba did take in his leader's word. Once he got his avatar back in full control, he took a different approach. While the bug-eyed boy was still engaging first, he knew what Momo's game was. Declaring in his mind, "You may think you're parrying like that, but you're still just a novice. I'll defeat your next counter." He moved forward with a straight right. As expected, when Tsuburaba starts charging up for his attack, Momo's avatar starts preparing itself as well, showing the fluid movement it was doing before. "That won't work again," Tsuburaba said, feinting that punch with another strike from his other arm. "Parries only work if you get the timing right. Feints can easily mess with the time, leaving the person disorientated for what comes next. Get wrecked." Right then the gears of the match switched. Before anyone noticed it, Momo was grappling at Tsuburaba's avatar's waist. Grabbing at his legs, Momo took him down to the ground. Izuku was surprised. That was wrestling. The two avatars scrambled on the floor, trying to gain dominance over the other. With Momo being the one who took the other down first, she had enough leverage to straddle Tsuburaba and pound away at his exposed face. The other tapers were yelling at Tsuburaba for getting outdone and grappling when he's using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Tsuburaba having trouble didn't surprise Izuku, as he already knew something most people here didn't. Wrestling is considered a kind of counter to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially when it's combined with another martial art. But how is she using both Silat and wrestling this effectively? She didn't optimize her stats for either, much less for a hybrid. The tapers up were increased, telling Tsuburaba to break out of it already. I'm trying. Tsuburaba yelled back at him, having his avatar struggle the best it could. Zero glared at the fight unfolding, thinking, that avatar is way too sturdy for how it was moving before. Pulling off a simple takedown is one thing, but winning in the scramble like this as well is far-fetched for someone who used their customization for speed. Unless, Izuku had come to the same conclusion, grinning to himself, so that's it. If I didn't have to play a role I would openly applaud you, Momo. Are you guys getting it now? Saiko asked the two little girls who have been bothering her for help for so long. They've been cooped up in the Killer Queen's clubroom for so long playing video games. Well, Mina isn't a child, but based on her actions Saiko can easily see her as such. Eri simply nodded while Mina said, yeah, we're starting to get a hang of these puzzles. We barely have to ask you for help anymore. The lavender-haired girl sat back, partaking in her cold drink before saying, that's the benefit of surrounding yourself with smart people. Really? Mina exclaimed, looking excited. Wow, I must have gotten a lot smarter since I hang out with you girls all the time. No, you're the one anomaly to it, Saiko harshly told her. Hey, but outside of you, it's always beneficial to surround yourself with other ambitious people that'll serve to motivate you where you want to go. Setsuna snickered from her position. Is that you only hang out with like one other person? Yes. So what? Snapped Saiko, turning to the greenette who's always been a bother to her. I don't know, sounds like a lonely life, Setsuna told her, shrugging as she gave her club leader a smug smile. No wonder this place can be a ghost town. Letting out a silent growl, Saiko informs her, I don't need 100 mindless dolts around me. If they're all dumb, unambitious, and mindless, then I'm only wasting my time and bringing myself down to hang around them all the time. All I need is a small handful of people at least close to my level that I can depend on, and I'm perfectly fine. Mina spoke up to ask, is that why you've been friends with Momo for so long? Of course, exclaimed Saiko, a bright smile appearing on her face. She seasikely brushed her hair with a hand before continuing, as capable as I am, I can only do so much at once. Thankfully I have Momo. There's no one whose skills I trust more, that's why she'll always be my second in command. And my friend. She can cover anything I can't. She certainly has a hell of a quirk, Izuku thought as he continued looking over Momo. As the avatars fought, Tsuburaba managed to get out of the incredibly difficult position he was in, but he was still in trouble. He couldn't get his rhyme in the fight. He couldn't stand as he couldn't get Momo's avatar off of him. His attempts to strike were swatted away like a bug, and when he went for grapples he found himself the one getting slammed. None of it made sense, he didn't see a weakness or anything in any one of Momo's actions. They all felt expertly executed. Zero sucked in his teeth, disappointed in his clubmate's performance. He hasn't noticed. Damn, this is why you don't sweat things or else you miss the important part. What was occurring was Momo's cheat. Tsuburaba hadn't noticed as he hadn't experienced a cheat being used this way in this game before. Momo's avatar's clothes had been inconsistent in form, changing depending on what Momo was doing. What looked like a simple aesthetic change was Momo changing her gears to affect her stats. There was a reason why Momo made her avatar build completely standard to not exceed in anything but have no overt weakness. She can easily make up the distance with the gear she makes from her cheat. With her quirk being able to produce whatever she wants, she made it her cheat that she can switch between any set of gear at will. This is how she was able to perform both Silat and wrestling with maximum efficiency. Her cheat-crafted gear will just increase whatever stats she needs to perform the move. Momo was truly running wild. Izuku commented, she's like a Swiss Army knife, able to switch between blows, throws, holds, and locks for whatever is needed. Her polymath is like the perfect all-arounder. Emotions ran up in Tsuburaba, unable to take being humiliated so hard by someone who has never played the game. With a final burst of strength, he managed to break fully away from Momo after being locked on the ground, shouting, "Get off of me." As he sought to get up, he made sure to crawl away backward before Momo tried anything funny again. That was when Zero yelled, "Don't back up, the wall." Advice given too late as Tsuburaba found his avatar had his back to the wall. Shit, hissed Tsuburaba, wanting his avatar to leave that position as quick as possible, but his avatar was sluggish, unable to get on his feet. What wrong with this thing? Oh no. Exhaustion, the gauge hit its limit and the effects are seething in. The closing act of this match began as Momo's avatar was already on its feet, approaching Tsuburaba who couldn't protect himself. "Let's end this," Momo declared, moving in. Letting out a final scream of adrenaline, Tsuburaba gave a desperate last attempt for a two-handed grapple. If he could grab her, he could hold on until his avatar caught its breath again. But this was denied, by two elbows from a feminine body crashing down on it. This was what Momo wanted, for him to come to her. Now she can deliver the coup de grace. First, discombobulate. Two of Momo's avatar's hands slammed themselves on both sides of Tsuburaba's ear, sending a deafening paralyzation through his body as his ears went haywire. Now gear switch, I'm putting everything into power. There was another change of Momo's outfit, and her avatar's strength had become more visible. Let's weaken him up a bit. Taking a step forward, she hit him with an upward elbow swing to the front of his face. The force drove Tsuburaba's back, knocking the back of its head against the wall and bouncing it back forward. Now break. There was a full-force knee waiting for Tsuburaba Avatar when its head fell forward, blasting it back to the rock-hard wall for another rebound. The audience, both in virtual and reality, could just feel the bones that were fractured. Now the end. Putting her whole body into the final strike, Momo practically collapsed on Tsuburaba's skull when she threw a punch that forced it crashing down to the ground. A boom echoed throughout the stadium as the sand on the floor flew up, and just as it came back to rest on the ground, so did all the noises in the room. Winner. Along with the announcement, the virtual crowd cheered. Momo's avatar gave a final look at the unconscious body of its opponent before walking away, leaving her controller to declare the end of this game. Game over. With that, the virtual arena disappeared. Momo picked up her things and stood up as she addressed the taper's leader. I take it you have no other objections to our offered arrangements, not that you have much of a choice now. The ponytail then looked at Tsuburaba before asking, or do you want a rematch? I don't mind giving you a second chance if you have any issues with the match. Though it won't be an exact repeat, I'll have a hang on the controls from the beginning this time. The bug-eyed player only clenched his fist, growling from the irritable fire lit in his body as he met her eye. No, that won't be needed, Siro said, rubbing the back of his head. You won this game, so we accept your terms. Then we'll be on our way, Momo replied, signaling to Izuku that they were going to take their leave. Before they left the room, Momo looked back to say, please be sure to read every word so we can avoid any misunderstanding. Then silence when Momo closed the door behind her. I'm sorry for losing, apologized Tsuburaba, looking down disappointed. Siro waved it off, don't sweat it, that's why you lost. We got what we needed anyways. The black-haired leader's thoughts drifted to what he was focused on. Tsuburaba defeat was his hubris, but there was no denying that there was a hiccup that changed the balance, which led to him getting exhausted. Izuku Midoriya, we were right to inspect you. He'll be happy to hear this. As Izuku and Momo made their way back to the clubroom, Izuku noticed Momo was awfully silent. She hasn't spoken a word since they left. At first, Izuku's curiosity led him to think maybe she was mad at him when she suddenly looked back at him after they turned a corner. It went back to confusion when Momo looked beyond where Izuku was standing and then back in the direction she was facing before. Izuku tilted his head. What is she thinking? The emerald green-eyed eyes widened a bit when he saw Momo begin to shudder. Thankfully, the reason why was explained when Momo began to jump around and squeal like a child who just won his first competition. Ah, so the exhilaration from victory hit here. Though it was something he couldn't relate to when it came to games, he did find some form of humor seeing her celebrate. Happy? Izuku asked when Momo turned back to him. Momo answered, yes, it went off wonderfully. Aren't you the same? The greenette shrugged. Honestly, I was more excited seeing you in all those outfits. Glad to see my earlier statement of your behind being worthy of its royalty status was correct. That lit up Momo's face bright red as she gasped. In her embarrassment, she started pounding away at her cess, stating, how could you? I was celebrating and you ruined it. Hooligan. Izuku stared up at the roof with a nonchalant face, barely guarding Momo's first assault. He mumbled, if only you were as strong as your virtual counterpart. You can't expect things in video games to translate to real life, huffed Momo, pulling away and crossing her arms. It'll give you a poor concept of how things really work. Really? Huh? Then do you mind going out with me to the market this weekend? I need to get you in some MMA clothes. Izuku tauntingly told her. Stoop. Momo whined, failing her arms in the air. Come on, things are always better in real life. I won't help you anymore with schoolwork if you keep teasing. Fine, fine. Their conversation stopped when Momo got a text message from Jiru. Nice work there, great to see you've improved since last year. Izuku commented, she's right, you did amazing back there. Thanks, I'm just happy I didn't disappoint, Momo replied, smiling at the message. You didn't, you really seem to know what you were doing back there. Well, Mina is a big MMA fan and she often makes me and some of the others watch with her. So I used what I learned there and combined it with aspects I learned from all of you. Really? Like what? Well, Saiko often uses defense to keep control in a game. Threw in a bit of Setsuna's provoking nature as well. And me. You. Momo giggled to herself. I only took a few notes. What kind? Not telling. Come on. Well, if you took notes from me, that'll explain why I was scratching my head at a few decisions. Oh, are you referring to how patient I was? I assumed his cheat gave him a strong defensive option that needed me to attack him, or else he would have just used it when he was attacking me at the beginning. So I made him frustrated enough to keep coming to me first so he can't use his cheat. Once he was exhausted and stunned, I could do whatever I wanted. Impressive, you didn't need me after all. I wouldn't say that, though you should trust me more. Maybe. Entering back into the clubroom, Izuku said, we're back. How did it go? Mina asked, turning to them. The rest of the group huddled toward the victorious pair. Momo answered, it went swimmingly. Saiko smiled, excellent, knew I could count on you. Holding up her copy of the conditions, Momo started telling them about it. Thank you, now I need to start preparing us for the match. The details are in this envelope, I only need a few days to create a. You won't be creating anything, Setsuna said as her disconnected hand snatched the envelope out of Momo's hand. You did enough today, let someone else do it. Amused, Saiko scoffed. Oh, are you going to do more work than the bare minimum? A toothy grin appeared on Setsuna. No, not me, you. The greenette pressed the envelope against her president's chest. What? Exclaimed Saiko. It's only fair, you were the one who wanted this match in the first place. You should be the one to make the plan, Setsuna told her as she began shoving her president to the door. See, Kylie, Izuku chuckled. Sounds like a fair deal. You are our glorious leader. You as well, stated Setsuna, pushing Saiko into him as both of them were shoved out the room. You voted for this as well. Wait, but I just got back. Too bad. Saiko shouted, you're not going to just push this on me and not with him. The devious trickster gave them both a farewell wave, closing them out with the phrase, this'll be a great time to get along. Have you too? Pouncing on the door, Saiko tried hissed at her clubmate. Setsuna, you seaweed-haired harlot. You open this door right now or so help me. When I get my hands on you I'll rip you limb from limb. That's quite literally my quirk, Setsuna called out from behind the door. I'll dip them in acid afterwards. Izuku commented, excessive much. Saiko glared back at him before banging her head against the door. Setsuna pushed this on her and she didn't think there'll be a way out of it. I'm going to get that girl one day, she thought to herself, before sighing. This is going to be a long couple of days. You're telling me, replied Izuku, crossing his arms. I'm going to be both annoyed and aroused throughout the entire thing. What? So should we meet at my place later or? Saiko let out a disgruntled groan.